Hello and welcome back to the Golden Fanfics. I hope you enjoy today's very special video. What if Deku was a villain? Made by the mysterious banana. And the story will be linked in the description like always. So leave a like, subscribe, and comment for another part. Now let's get into the fanfic. Chapter 21. 2 weeks passed in the near blink of an eye. The villains that couldn't make the cut ended up turning away from the league, returning to their home country town. One of Izuku's biggest regrets was to include Yuuei, as it was heartbreaking, even for him, to witness her tearful departure from her former team. At the airport, before Iyasa, Veronica and Aberk embarked on their plane, they saw a familiar figure running to them. They cried tears of joy as Yuuei leapt into their arms, giving them one last tearful goodbye as they returned to their home. Only one day until the raid, and only one day until the sports festival. The night before the big day, Izuku and his organized strike force met up for one rundown of the plan. "We have been preparing for almost 2 full weeks, I hope we get some amazing results." Izuku said, "Is everything prepared?" "The escape chopper is up and running," Magni replied. "I've acquired the blood of a staff member. You can count on me, Izuku," replied Toga with excitement. "Now all we need is a name for our main strike force, the ones who will do the dirty work," said Dabi. "You're right, we never actually thought of a team name for them," replied Izuku. "I do recall an already organized team is within our strike force, should we just call this team by their name?" asked Twice. "Nah, let's think of something new," said Muscular. Suddenly, the mentioned strike force came barging through the door. "Hey guys. We bought beers. Let's party," they cheered in unison. "You guys sure seem excited," commented Izuku, smiling at their idea. "Hey, tomorrow might be our last, so why not enjoy ourselves while we still can?" asked Sachi. "Fair enough," replied Izuku. "Alright. Let's turn up the music and wait, what were you guys doing?" asked Irina. "Oh, just deciding what we were gonna call you guys. We already thought of a cool team name, actually," said Yuuei. "Oh really? Let's hear it," said Kurogiri while cleaning beer mugs. "Well, we decided that since we were attempting one of the most dangerous raids in villain history, that would make us pretty damn fearless, despite the fact that we were basically embarking on a suicide mission, so we decided to call ourselves the Suicide Squad," answered Alpha. The room cheered as they agreed with the name of their team. "Wait," Twice interrupted, "doesn't he see already?" "Suicide Squad," Jack cut off, placing his hand over Twice's mouth, shutting him up. Izuku poured himself a mug of beer and raised it into the air. "For the death of heroes." Everyone else followed up, clanking their mugs. "For the death of heroes." It was the big day. A massive swarm of people crowded the streets near the former redesigned Olympics Colosseum as a massive line formed at the ticket booth. Many people were near the food stalls, buying snacks and refreshments for the event. Heroes stood in the middle of circulation, acting as security and fan magnets. In the prep room, while everyone was stoked for the big event, Izuku was adjusting his earpiece so that he may know when his operation goes haywire, which is also when he will bail from the competition. Just then, Todoroki walked up to him. "Izuku, was it? I've seen what you are capable of, and I must say, objectively speaking, I am stronger than you," he said in a menacing tone. "Oh, okay then," Izuku replied, not paying attention to his threat. "I don't care if you're the talk of the whole school," Todoroki continued, "I will beat you." Those fighting words seemed to have triggered Izuku. "Well then," Izuku said, standing, letting out an aura of animosity. The other students caught a glimpse, causing them to panic. "Whoa there. Don't fight right now. We haven't even started yet," said Zero in a panicked tone as Izuku slowly walked up to Todoroki. As Todoroki felt his threatening aura, the air around him seemed to get cooler. As Izuku closed in, he was getting ready to attack. Then Izuku placed his hand on Todoroki's shoulder as the aura dispelled. "Good luck to you too," he said, giving him a lively smile before walking out the door. Izuku hasn't even made it out the building yet, but he could already hear the unnecessarily loud announcement made by President Mick. As they made it out to the arena, he could hear the cheers of the crowd. "It's Class A," cheered the crowd. Izuku looked around, seeing the multiple other classes, counting each and every individual one. Small fry and more small fries," Izuku commented lightly as they made their way to the ref, the R-rated heroine, Midnight. "Alright. Now for the athlete's oath," she cheered. "Oh my. It's the R-rated heroine, Midnight," commented some of the students. "Why isn't it the principal?" asked another one. "He's in the 3rd-year stage," replied another. "Should she really be teaching in high school?" asked Tokoyami. "Shut it. Your student representative is," Midnight continued, pointing into the crowd, "Izuku Midoriya." "What?" yelled Kitsuki, pissed that Izuku stole his spot. "Why Izuku?" asked Kirishima. He saved 2 pro heroes, including All Might from a villain attack. He has extremely high reputation," replied Zero. "He just got lucky," said some student from another class in a jealous tone. As Izuku got to the podium, he smiled as he looked down upon every other students, seeing them as nothing more than ants. Picking up the microphone, he spoke up. "I would like to take this moment to tell you all, I am not here to win, rather, I am here because I have been to rock bottom plenty of times in my life, for several reasons. So even if I can't make it past the first obstacle, I will still be grateful that I was of enough to be included in this amazing roster of future heroes." Humming down the podium, most of the crowd was silenced. Being a representative as well as the talk of the news would inflate anyone's ego. For someone like that to give such a modest speech silenced most jealous students who initially called him over-infant stuck-up. "That should keep most students off my back now, wonder how my suicide squad is doing," thought Izuku. The colossal compound that was the Hero Association headquarters stood like a monolith, gazing down the city from its perk. A black car entered the parking lot and out exited a young, lively accountant, heading to work as usual. Scanning his ID card, he entered the building and walked past the secretary. "Oh, hi Wakaba," said the secretary as the young fellow headed for the elevators. Heading to the 5th floor, the man walked into his office, an individual room right across the main security control room. Pulling out his phone, he smiled as he dialed a number before dropping the phone out the window. Meanwhile, on the outside, a bus was parked a few meters away from the building. The driver then received a text saying, "The mole is in." Immediately, he stepped on the gas pedal and drove to the entrance. Noticing a suspicious vehicle had pulled over, the security guards walked up to the bus as its driver exited. "We're very sorry, but this area is restricted." "Oh man. And we drove all this way for nothing. We had an international high school trip to Japan planned and everything," the man said, disappointed. "Oh really? Where from?" asked the guard. Suddenly, guns sprouted out the bus windows as the driver replied with a smirk. "Texas." Before the security guard can call for backup, shots rang out as the man was riddled with bullets. From the control room, the security guard saw everything unfold before their eyes. Panicked, they were around to ring the alarm when the door opened behind them and a young, lively-looking accountant was seen, holding a gun, shooting every last operator. The man's face dissolved, revealing that of Toga's underneath. She then turned to the control panel, cutting the power and disabling the alarm. "Way. 2. Easy," she said, walking out of the control room that was engulfed in flames 5 seconds later. Meanwhile, a black cargobob was seen hovering around the top floors of the building. With the entire building's power cut off, no one could contact anyone, and half of the employees don't even know that there was an attack yet. Preparing to parachute in 3, 2, 1. 4 figures jumped out of the chopper that was piloted by Magni. The 4-man team crashed through the window on the 25th floor. Most of the people from witnessed the crash panicked and ran. The squad scouted the area for any hostile. It was clear. Ran through the corridors, scouting every corner to make sure everything was clear. "Is she near Tracker?" asked Doc. "He should be right around the corner according to my quirk," he replied. Peeking through a corner, they came face to face with Toga. "Hey guys," she said cheerfully. "Ah, there you are Toga, did you survey the entire building through the security cameras?" asked Alpha. "Yup. There are 250 security guards in total in this complex and 12 pro heroes," she explained. "Any status on Sachi, Irina and Yeong?" asked Rabbit. "Last I saw, they took the elevator to the basement where they keep all the banned illegal substances, weapons and machinery," Toga replied. "And Jack?" asked Tracker. "He's the bait. His job is to cause as much havoc as possible, attracting most security guards to his location. Once Sachi's group retrieves their payload, they will pick Jack up and meet up with us, then we all hurry to the top floor where Magni and Mr. Compress will be waiting for us," explained Toga. "Then let's get going. We still have 52 more floors to go before we can retrieve the International Hero Database," said Alpha, moving out. "Okay then, let's go," Toga said, cheerfully following the hounds. Back with Jack, he wandered to the main lobby where several security guards rushed in to stop them. "Alright, some action." "I was starving," Jack said with a crazy attitude. His insane attitude sent shivers down the spines of the security guards, who hesitantly lunged at him with batons, attempting to subdue him. That however was a mistake as Jack jumped into the air, causing everyone to look up, then landed behind one of the security guards in the back, sinking his teeth into his throat and ripping out a chunk of his neck. "He's crazy, this man is crazy," uttered some of the security guards as the madman slowly and giddily charged at the rest of the men. One of the guardsmen swung at him with his baton, so Jack pulled out one of the knives he keeps hidden in his sweater and stabbed the man in the wrist, forcing him to let go of the baton. Dak then slid his knife all the way down the guard's arm before slashing his throat, leaving a huge and fatal cut running from his wrist to his neck. The others, panicked, pulled out their pistols, pointing at him. Sensing danger, he grabbed the corpse of the guard he killed and used it as a meat shield, blocking the bullets as he charged into the group of guards, closing the distance and cutting them down one by one. The men at the back, seeing this, started to run as the Death Ranger made his way through the guards one by one. Upon finally reaching the emergency exit, the remaining security guard pushed the door open, leaping in joy that he had survived. But the sudden burst of joy was cut short as he tumbled down the stairs, breaking his own neck. Back at the top floor, Jack giggled maniacally, satisfied with his rampage. Suddenly, a flash of light caught his attention as he felt a kick to his sides, staggering him as he skittered about 5 feet. "Looks like I made the right call staying at headquarters," said the assailant. "I feel like I've seen you somewhere," said Jack, with a cackle. "I've seen you too, you were part of the sudden villain attack that took place 2 weeks ago. You were the accomplice that helped the villains escape. Thus I, the shining hero, the conductor, will stop you," said Xenia. Jack smiled as he removed the metallic scarf wrapped around Ho's face, revealing eyes that gleam with madness. "Bring it." With Sachi, Irina and Yeong, the three made their way down to the basement. There they saw a large group of security guards hanging around. A sign hung from the ceiling, with the words "Guard Lounge" written on it. At the end of the corridor, however, lay a vault door, where they store their illegal weapons, drugs, substance, etc. So they made the way to the vault into a guard lounge, so that it could be protected 24/7, "Clever," said Sachi. "So many of them, I can count nearly 50, we need to devise a plan of attack," said Yeong. "We have a plan," said Irina, nodding at Sachi, who nodded back. Before Yeong could however, the duo jumped out of cover, immediately alerting the whole room. "Attack." The security guards, with basic instinct, drew their guns. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" asked one of them. Sachi looked at Irina. "You keep count," he said. Irina stared back, giving him the dirty look. "No, you do it," replied Irina. "No, you do it," Sachi argued. Suddenly, like a ninja, Yeong ran past both of them, drawing her blade and immediately cutting down 2 security guards. "I'll keep count then," she said, taking up a letterish tone, one inspired by Izuku. Upon seeing this, the guards opened fire. Yeong deflected a few bullets, then kicked over a table, ducking under it. Irina pulled out her necklace, focusing her energy. The necklace grew to the size of a shield, blocking most bullets. She then threw the shield Captain America style, knocking out 4 more guards. Sachi took advantage of the ceasefire to duck out of cover, firing a barrage of spikes out of his fingers, shooting down 3 of the guards. Sachi Tsukiyama. Quirk. Spike gun. Description: his fingers can fire spikes that naturally grows from his body. He can also infuse these spikes with different natural body toxins like dopamine, adrenaline, etc. Irina von Tescalorius. Quirk. Size manipulation. Description: she can alter the size of anything she touches. The size of non-living organisms are permanently altered, but living organisms will revert to their original size in a matter of hours. Author's note: MHA does this thing where every time a new character is introduced, they have an intro screen pop up on the top screen, telling us their quirks. I wanted to do the same thing. Some of the guards kicked over their tables, ducking behind Sachi's barrage. One of the bunch threw a flashbang at Irina. But before anyone could react, the flashbang got cut in half by Yeong before it even exploded. She then somersaulted over the cover, slicing up 6 more security guards on the way, then kicked one of them that was about to throw a frag grenade, shoved the grenade into his own pocket, then kicked him into his friend's, blowing up 4 more. 19 down so far, 31 to go, she commented. Suddenly, one of the guards, who was much bigger than the others, came up from behind her, grabbing her in a bear hug. "Brats, they got Yeong," Irina called out. "Don't worry, I'll get her back, I haven't been spending by 2 weeks doing nothing after all," replied Sachi, jumping out of cover. "Eat this." Sachi fired a purple-colored dart into the neck of the guard. However, it didn't seem to do anything, so the guard laughed. "Ahaha. What kind of weak attack was that?" Before he could finish, Sachi raised his arms, and in astonishment, so did the guard, letting go of Yeong. "But I can't control my body?" asked the guard in confusion. "Sachi? What is this?" asked Irina. "This is the fruit of my 2-week training, the Neuro Dart. When hit with it in the neck area, the Neuro Dart temporarily hijacks a person's nervous system, rendering their body under my control for a brief periods of time," said Sachi. Sachi then started making a bunch of movie-like kung fu moves while making Bruce Lee noises as the big guard started to beat up all of his allies. "Yeah. Go get them." Suddenly, the guard stopped following Sachi's directions and turned back to him, more pissed than ever. "Sachi? Irina turned to him, pissed. It wore off. Sachi said nonchalantly. Already? I never said it lasted long. Guys, talk later, we still have half the guards to take care of. Cried Yeong, running back. Sachi then looked at Irina as she immediately got his message and turned her head away. No, we're not doing that. She said. Come on. We're literally about to die and you still don't want to do it. Asked Sachi. Do what? Asked Yeong. I'm not doing it, it's embarrassing. Yelled Irina. Not even for a free chocolate bar? Asked Sachi, pulling out a candy bar from his pocket. Irina sighed. Fine, just this once. Yeong, get down. Irina yelled out. Reluctantly trusting the two, she ducked down as Irina and Sachi held hands. For the record, this isn't supposed to look this weird. Irina. Less talking, more focusing. Said Sachi. Suddenly, with Irina's size manipulation quirk, Sachi's hand turned huge. He then aimed at the guards, who seemed to have understood the danger, but it was too late. Combo attack. Giga Needle. Sachi, with his gigantified hand, shot out a massive spike, wiping out the entire room and tearing a hole through the vault door. That was awesome. Sachi yelled out, tried to lift his arms, but was unable. That's the last time I'm doing that ever again. She said as she made her way to the cracked open vault. Coming, Yeong. Coming. Yeong replied, following Irina, leaving Sachi with an oversized hand behind, unable to move. A little help here. Back to Izuku, he grinned as an aura of success was felt. Something tells me things are going pretty smooth. He said to himself as he made his way to the first event of the day. The obstacle race. Chapter 22. As the students headed to the starting line, Izuku saw that most of the aggressive aura emitted by most competitors had dissipated after the modest speech he made, although he could still feel the cold, murderous eyes of Todoroki staring him down. He aggressively walked up to Izuku, glaring into his soul and trying to pressure him to surrendering before the race even starts. Izuku glares back as Todoroki walks right past him. I won't be holding back, you've been warned. Todoroki said. Don't underestimate me, Shadow, I'm always one step ahead. Izuku replied. Todoroki smiled in pity. We'll see about that. The horde of competitors gathered at the starting line as the intensity gave Izuku a nostalgic shiver of nervousness down his spine. 3, 2, 1. The starting gun was fired as the gates opened and students were seen charging through the gate. That charge didn't last long, as the one leading the charge was none other than Todoroki, freezing the front runners in ice, as well as blocking the front entrance. Todoroki turned around, looking at his handy, however, what he saw was all of Class A barging through. You won't stop us that easy. The students yelled in unison as each individual found their own way of making it through. Looks like more people made it through than I thought. Todoroki said to himself. Looking back, a nimble figure used his small size to zip past the other runners, jumping in range of Todoroki. It was Mineta, who, despite being one of the wimpiest students in Class A in Todoroki's eyes, was somehow the first to come in range. But thinking, staying 2 steps behind, now it's my turn. Eat my killer move. Grape. Before Mineta could finish, he was sent flying with a smack to the face. Todoroki, upon seeing this happen, turned around to find the source of the attack, but froze in awe at the wall of machines that stood before him. Every obstacle course needs obstacles, starting with, of course, our first barrier. Robo Inferno. Announced President Mick. So these are what the students faced in the entrance exams? Asked Todoroki. How did they get enough money to make those? Asked Momo to herself as she came in range. Ice wrapped around the lead runner as his eyes grew dead cold. I had hoped for more of a challenge. He said in an icy tone as glaciers sprouted from the ground, freezing the robots in place, especially since my dear dad is watching. As the massive war machine became encased in ice, Todoroki rushed forward. The other runners, seeing this opportunity, followed suit. Bad choice, as in the position the robots froze in, they didn't have the balance to support themselves and fell, crushing the Ice Boy's chasers. Todoroki didn't look back, not even regretting the people he could have potentially killed. He simply moved on, running further ahead. Suddenly, one after another, the crushed racers popped out like moles, one after another, first Kirishima, then Tetsu, then another one, and another, then things just picked up from there. But while everyone was trying to power through the massive colossi, Kitsuki took a shortcut and used his explosion quirk to blast him up and over the robots, catching up to Todoroki dead on his tracks. But before Kitsuki could take the lead, he needed to first tackle the second trial. The fall. A deep dark pit with several stone platforms acting as the pathway, connected with tight ropes, as a means for ordinary people or people without movement-related quirks could cross. Kitsuki already saw that Todoroki was halfway there, so he wasted no time running ahead. But while Kitsuki was still struggling on catching up to him, Todoroki, who had just made it to the end, looked back and gazed in confusion as a question popped up in his head, where is Midoriya? Being the determined, lively, energetic kid that he was, he expected to see him neck to neck with some of the front runners, but no matter how much he squinted, there was no sight of him. Was he that far behind? Did all of the pressure get to him? He couldn't think for long, as he could hear explosions coming closer and closer to him, signaling that Kitsuki was catching up. Quickly, he hurried to the final trial. The minefield. It was unsettling, really, after the giant robots and bottomless pits, having the final stretch be a 100-meter dash to the finish felt anticlimactic until he heard the announcers explain what the course was all about. I see, so this final course gives the one in first a disadvantage, it's all just a big show. Thought carefully attempted to avoid hitting any mines. Haha, this kind of crap. The voice was heard coming from behind the ice boy as he turned around to see Kitsuki dashing right past him in a blinding burst of speed. "Can't slow me down," Kitsuki yelled as he gained the lead, looking back at Todoroki. "Your declaration of war was to the wrong person, Todoroki." The two runners were neck and neck, struggling for the lead. As they closed in towards the finish line, Kitsuki started sending bursts of flame at Todoroki, attempting to knock him over, but as a result, was unable to pay attention to below him, stepping on a mine as blasting him back. With his only competition taken out, Todoroki smiled triumphantly as he was just a few feet away from the finish line. It seems that the victor has been decided. The first place winner of the obstacle race is none other than… Hold the phone present Mick, what is that? Aizawa cut off. Just then, Todoroki's eyes widened as a shadowy figure dropped in front of him, one that appeared out of nowhere, thin air almost. A pungent shiver ran down his spine as he recognized the face of the one who took his lead. Izuku Midoriya. Looking at Todoroki's face twist in disbelief, Izuku gave him a warm but sadistic smile as he turned around, casually wailing through the finish line. The Coliseum went silent, along with the announcers, as their jaws dropped at the unexpected twist. What a twist. The first place winner of the obstacle race is none other than Izuku Midoriya. The silenced stadium went wild with cheers. All Might, sitting in the bleachers, nearly fell over and broke his own neck. Back home, Inko clutched her pillows as tears of joy sprayed out of her eyes like a water hose. Back at the hideout, the villains cheered triumphantly as their new leader once again stole the show. The other racers followed soon after, as Todoroki looked down in disbelief. Wait. I call bullshit. Deku was nowhere to be seen. How did he end up in first? I demand a recount. Kitsuki yelled out in rage. Yeah. We didn't even see him. Where the hell was he? Yeah. He might have been cheating. Cheater. Suddenly, all the other contestants started to yell at the winner. Silence. Midnight yelled with a crack of her whip as she revealed where Izuku was through the TV screen. The crowd went silent as they saw Izuku at the back of the race. Suddenly, a wind blast shot his body upwards, sending him into the air, soaring out of the stadium through its open ceiling. From there, Izuku created a skateboard-sized whirlwind below his feet and flew along the paths, casually dodging all the obstacles before jumping off the whirlwind and landing 2 feet from the finish line. Hey. Isn't that sort of cheating? Present Mick asked. Not quite. Replied Aizawa. The rules specified that contestants must stay in the course and can use their quirks to their full extent. But there was no rule that rules out flying over the obstacles. Heck, Kitsuki and plenty of other students flew over the first trial. While Izuku did go a little too high, people with a wing quirk could easily have done the same, so technically speaking, what Izuku had just done was perfectly legal. We might need to redo the rules for next year, but you have it folks, the legitimate winner of the first event. Present Mick announced. Meanwhile, Todoroki stared in disbelief, unable to register how he lost. Just then, Izuku walked past him and whispered into his ear. See? I'm always one step ahead of you. Back at the headquarters. Sounds of blades clashing rang across the main lobby as Xenia kicked over a sofa to shield herself from Jack's throwing knives. Suddenly, the sofa got sliced in half, leaving a shallow cut on his back. The crazed murderer took advantage of this brief moment of vulnerability and lunged at him with a hidden blade. The shining hero drew one of his scimitars, parrying the upcoming knife, and then turned around, kicking Jack in the stomach, sending him through a coffee table. Like a puppet, the crazed psychopath got up without any care of pain and lunged at him once more, giving the hero no chance to catch his breath as he swung wildly at Xenia. Seeing how he couldn't win the fight close up, he jumped back, letting out a huge flash of light similar to a flashbang, blinding our demented executioner. When his vision cleared, he saw that he was now surrounded by a bunch of people all looking like the conductor. Before he could ask any questions, however, they all charged him at once. Jack slashed one of them, but saw that he immediately dissolved into light. Illusions, eh? Jack thought, I have my means to deal with these. Suddenly, in a flash faster than the eye could track, all of Xenia clones were ripped apart as, coming out of Jack's leaves, were 4 metallic serpents. What the hell are those? The real Xenia asked in confusion, revealing himself to be hiding behind a pillar. These are my chain snakes, you like them? Jack asked, launching one of them at Xenia. The hero quickly dodged, but the snake steered midair, sinking its metallic jaws into his shoulder. Surprised. My babies were made thanks to a combination of AI technologies and magnetic plates, the only way I can justify their sentience, as Jack's quirk has nothing to do with it. Not even I can predict where they will land next. Jack explained. Bastard, where did a maniac like you get this kind of weapon? Asked Xenia, pulling the snake out of his shoulder. I've been arrested more times than I can count, sentenced as a test subject for different weapons in more institutions than I can count. Of course I'd take a souvenir every now and then after my escapes. Jack said, slowly approaching the wounded hero, as his sadistic and psychotic smile only grew wider at the sight of the wounded hero. Damn, I can't take him alone, I called for backup, but where the hell are they? Back with the hounds and Toga. The bloodied and beaten up hero limped towards the exits as he clutched his arm in pain, attempting to escape from the group he just fought. Damn, I can't believe they got Hannibal and Lullafly, we were supposed to be the next top 3 heroes, this can't be the end. He said to himself as he clutched to the exit door, don't worry my friends, you will be avenged, I just need to call for more backups, and it will all be good, just need to reach the elevators. Suddenly, he heard a voice from the other end of the corridor. The hero struck a battle stance as he prepared himself for the upcoming threat. Dodger? A familiar voice called. Hannibal? He replied as his former fellow hero stood in front of him. There was no doubt, he recognized him from head to toe, a tall, skinny but muscular man with silky, short black hair and a face of dignity and pride. Thank God you're alive. Dodger ran at him, jumping into his arms. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain as his former friend lodged a knife in his throat. He only caught a glimpse of the body of his former comrade melting down, revealing a young, childlike girl, as his throat squirted blood all of her shirt, killing him slowly and painfully. That should be the last of them, said Alpha, walking by her and pressing the elevator button. We're taking this to the 77th floor? Asked Tracker, following suit. No way. It would be way too dangerous. They would obviously have 100 guns pointed at the elevator doors, just waiting for it to open. Exclaimed Doc. Who cares? I'm craving for another head to bash in. Let me at him. Rabbit said in a warrior-like tone. No, he's right, we can't risk this, it's best to take the stairs. Said Tracker. Oh, but I hate taking the stairs. It's so boring. Toga ranted. We have no choice Toga, now let's get going. Alpha ordered. Order me around again, that's how you'll get yourself killed mutt. Toga mumbled as the group walked towards the stairway. With Yeong, Irina and Sachi. You know, I really didn't think I'd say this, but you're not too bad Yeong. Irina said, looting the vaults from all their goodies, shrinking them down to the size of a pill and putting them in a designated box, labeled illegal stuffs. Thanks Yeong replied, switching out some of her firearms with more military-grade weapons. You seems way too quiet, lighten up buddy. We're here for you. We gotta enjoy ourselves more often you know. Besides, look at some of these babies. Sachi said, glancing at all the amazing guns and other weapons, like check this out. That's a freaking small. Do you have any idea how long I dreamt of firing this baby? Let okay then hey look. A Scar 15. Cool huh? She said, trying way too hard to act like she's enjoying herself. Sachi didn't seem to like this, so he walked up to Yeong, who was shaking like though she just triggered him. Instead, he patted her on the back, kneeling down to her level. Listen, I don't know if it's the fact that you're taking this mission too seriously or what, but whatever it is, don't worry, we're your friends. And we will stop at nothing to help you, so don't be shy, if you want to go let loose of stress, just do it, okay? Sachi said, giving her a genuine and warm smile. As Sachi turned to the drug aisle, Yeong took what he said to heart. Having been against the world her entire life, the only 2 people she ever trusted was Jefferson and Izuku, but this? Could she really trust these people? She heart started to ease up as she smiled, knowing there was now 2 more people she can trust. Suddenly, a gunshot followed by a girlish scream startled Irina, who rushed to see what happened. Hiya. I've been shot. Yelled Sachi as he clutched his shoulder, it's all going dark take care of Rina please. Haha relax. It's not loaded. Yeong laughed jokingly. Irina, seeing this, couldn't help but chuckle, before breaking down into laughter. Hey. Cut it out. It wasn't that funny Sachi said, crossing his arms in embarrassment as his own plan backfired, causing Irina and Yeong to break down laughing. Okay, I admit, it was a little funny. Chapter 23. 10 million. Izuku uttered in shock, I'm worth 10 million. This was the second event. cavalry battle, and it had seemed that the whole letting Todoroki nearly win but snatched the win from him, hence breaking his spirit plan backfired on the young, green-haired boy. Now, all of a sudden, every other remaining participants were glaring at him, reminiscent of his days back in middle school. The sheer amount of eyes glaring at him and the amount of people avoiding him like the plague made things hard for Izuku. Although, he knew he couldn't just throw the match. Going from one person to another, it seemed as though people were avoiding him like the plague. Even close friends like Ichako and Iida ended up avoiding him. He even turned to some of the students from Class B, but no one wanted to team up with him. As the timer was running out, Izuku was about to just make peace with whatever god he knew. Just then, he felt a hand of his shoulder and turned around. His eyes widened however, as he met face to face with the last guy he thought of teaming up with. Kitsuki. "Hey Deku," Kitsuki said in a rather subdued voice, which was unheard of for him. "Hakken? What's going on here?" asked Izuku. "Every other fucker around here are turning away from me like I'm have herpes or something. Besides Kirishima and Shiro, you are literally the only other person left," explained the living hand grenade of a man. As much as Izuku wanted to say no and punch him square in the nose, he knew there was no other options, so he accepted. "Fine, it would be nice to finally have you carry me," Izuku said jokingly. "Don't push it, broccoli head," Kitsuki said in a pissed off tone. As the teams got into position, Izuku called his team into a huddle, discussing a strategy. He knew he had to improvise. What he had to work with was tapes, explosives, a living human shield and his wind ability. As the teams got into place, Midnight re-explained the rules. One final rundown on the rules here. The teams must remain a unit. If a member of a unit is spotted separating from the group, their whole team will be disqualified. Suddenly a spark of genius hit Izuku. Should a teammate get spotted, that's it. He though as a light bulb lit up in his head. "Guys, I got a plan," Izuku said. "Really? Let's hear it," replied Shiro, smiling. As the horses got into position, Midnight stated to count down. 3, 2, 1, go. As expected, all of the teams charged at Izuku's squad. Looking around though, he didn't see Todoroki. "Even when losing, you still managed to keep your cool, huh? Most impressive," thought Izuku as several students rushed in. "Bring it on," Kitsuki roared. "No Kakken. We stick to the plan," Izuku corrected. As much as Kitsuki wanted to charge forward, Shiro and Kirishima giving him the dirty look allowed him to restrain himself. Immediately, their team was hit with a barrage of hits as the students were determined to take Izuku's headband. But, in the ensuing chaos, the sheer amount of force dealt from the multiple assortment of quirks raised a massive smokescreen, especially enlarged by Kitsuki, who activated his explosion quirk to minimize the damage. Sounds of fighting covered the battlefield as it became hard to tell what happened. Suddenly, several teams felt someone pass by as the band on their head were torn off. Shocked, they turned around and saw several other groups holding their headbands. "Hey. What the hell? Aren't you on our side?" yelled Toru, staring at the smug blonde that was holding a collection of headbands. "Sides? Since when were there sides? This is a free-for-all, remember? So why shouldn't I take someone else's headbands when they literally offer them to me?" replied Monoma. Suddenly, Kitsuki flew through the air, snatching the headband belonging to Monoma as he was bragging. "That goes for you too, you fuck," Kitsuki cackled. "What the? How the hell did they get over there?" screamed Mina's team. "Yeah, with all that chaos. The only way they could have slid through was if they split up," Shiro responded, cutting off Tetsu. "Wait, you didn't," he uttered shocked. "That's against the rules. Ref. Disqualify them now." "No can do," replied Midnight. "What?" they shouted in unison. "We only disqualify cheaters if we have concrete proof that they're cheating. In that giant smoke, anyone could have split up, we can never be too sure," she replied. Izuku smiled. "Yeah, in the word of the great gambler Arby, it's not cheating if you don't get caught," Izuku responded. Suddenly, as if in a sudden flash, a blur zoomed right past him, tearing off his 10 million point headband. Izuku, with cold sweat running down his neck, turned to the left to see Todoroki, with Iida and his team, holding his band. "You two should pay more attention to your surroundings," Todoroki said coldly. Izuku, seeing this, immediately ordered his team to give chase to Todoroki, but then realized they put a fake-out headband on him, with a number hidden, as if he never lost the headband in the first place. And with the other teams still recovering from their shock, no one even saw that Todoroki stole his headband. And so, the horde of horses continued to chase after Izuku. "Why you hey you horses? You want my headband, take it," Izuku yelled as he threw his headband into the air and immediately chased after Todoroki's group as the other team fought each other for a fake band. Izuku charged at Todoroki, who sensed that Izuku was getting desperate, a state he never saw him in. Smiling with satisfaction, he whispered back. Now who's a step ahead of who? This really seemed to trigger Izuku, as his desperation turned into a rage that would have made people believe he got possessed by Kitsuki. "You bastard." Izuku yelled, boosting their entire team forward by launching double cyclones behind him. As soon as they were to close the gap however, ice walls sprouted out of the ground, stopping the group dead in their track. Only 2 minutes left, and Team Todoroki was still sitting pretty with their 10 million point band, which the rest of the teams have now realized that he took. Kitsuki, however, seemed more angry. "I ain't gonna lose," he said softly at first, "because of you, Deku." Kitsuki blasted right through the multiple ice walls Todoroki made. "Zero. Shot at them with your tape," Izuku ordered. "I can't hit them. They're too fast," Zero exclaimed. "Damn it," Izuku yelled back. Suddenly, the ground surged with electricity, and just as the other teams were closing in, paralyzing everyone. "Good work, Kaminari." Todoroki praised the now brain-dead battery boy as their group dashed to safety with only 20 seconds to spare. The countdown started as the team eased up. People were counting it down as well, impressed with how they managed to hold everyone off. But, in the deafening cheers of the crowd, Todoroki's eyes widened as a single blonde-haired kid dashed through the shadows, snatching one of the bands Todoroki had around his neck. "Gotcha," Kitsuki said as a mini cyclone formed under him, blowing him back to the nearly collapsed horse that was Team Izuku. Sadly, before Kitsuki could celebrate, he took a closer look into his hand and cursed. "Hakken. What's wrong?" asked Izuku. "They switched the bands. I got a fucking 71. Answered Katsui with frustration. "What?" Izuku yelled back. "And time's up," yelled Present Mick. "Damn it." Kitsuki punched the ground. "Now let's see who the top teams are." Present Mick called out, in first place, Team Todoroki, in second Team Ichako. From across the arena, with 5 headbands taken thanks to Tokoyami during the smokescreen, they managed to take second place. Izuku, seeing this, gritted his teeth, now scared that they wouldn't make the cut. And third Team Shinso? How did he get so many points? Some of the students asked as they saw Shinso, covered in bands as well. As they were about to announce the 4th place winner, Izuku slowly walked away when suddenly, Zero came to cheer him up. "If you're worried about losing, don't sweat it, you know why?" he asked with optimism. "Why is that?" Izuku asked back. Suddenly, Zero snapped off the tape that was protruding from his elbow. "Kitsuki's explosion sent several of Todoroki's bands flying off of him, so I used a tape that missed and snatched a few. And the 4th place is," Present Mick said while imitating a drumroll. "So in other words, Team Midoriya," cheered Present Mick. Izuku smiled in relief as tears of joy streamed down his face. "Damn, thanks pal," Izuku said, hugging Zero. "Hey. Don't sweat it. Besides, we might end up fighting," Zero said with a smile. As the team scattered, Izuku headed back into the locker rooms, noticing that Kitsuki was looking at him funny. He punched the wall, causing it to crack as he gritted his teeth in anger. "My plan failed, I can't believe myself. Not only did my plan fail, but I lost composure, nearly made my team lose, and now caused Kaken to get suspicious. How can someone like me possibly lead the league if I can't improvise new plans? Have I only gotten lucky until now?" Izuku hit himself. Then, he let out a light laughter, one that was showing his more insane side. "Well then, guess that just means I still have room to improve. That's perfect, that means I can still avoid stagnation. I guess this isn't a complete loss, yes Izuku. Even complete losses allow you to gain experience. Calm down, just calm down," he said to himself, barely allowing him to go on a tantrum Shigaraki style. "I guess this is how Shigaraki feels, huh?" Suddenly, out of the corner of his ear, he heard a conversation happening. He would have ignored it, assuming it was just 2 students chatting if one of them didn't strike him as familiar. It was All Might. He ran to the source of the sound, leaning against a wall to try to hear the conversation. Then he saw the 2 that were talking, as the sheer pressure emanating from the 2 paralyzed him in fear. It was a chat between the number 1 hero All Might and the number 2 hero Endeavor. "Why fellow there NG. Fancy seeing you here, coming to watch your son?" asked the valiant hero. "That lost All Might," Endeavor replied coldly as he walked away. All Might gave chase, springing in front of the flaming hero. "Don't be such a party pooper NG. It's been 10 full years since we last had a conversation," he continued. "Don't you have autographs to sign or something?" Endeavor replied with a hint of annoyance. "Your son pulled quite an impressive win there, winning without even the use of his left side. You must have raised him well," All Might complimented. "What are you trying to say?" The flaming hero grunted, looking at All Might with an aggressive attitude. "Actually, I was hoping you could give me tips about training the next generation of heroes," All Might asked, "just like how you trained young Todoroki." Endeavor grunted with annoyance. "I hate that happy-go-lucky attitude of yours." Endeavor said in an angry tone, making Izuku wonder if this wasn't actually Katsuki's dad. I will tell you this however. Endeavor turned to All Might with a confident smile. I'll mold him into the ultimate hero, the one that will surpass you. That's the only reason I created him. He said loudly. That's a bit harsh, don't you think? All Might asked. Little that the two heroes knew, there was an eavesdropper, a very pissed off one at that. Oh really? A bit harsh, that's the best you got against the world's most obvious child abuser, Izuku thought. I don't even know what I should be more pissed off about. The fact that Endeavor can even stay a hero for doing this, or the sheer lack of understanding or care coming from All Might. He doesn't really seem like a kid who likes his father. All Might continued. Oh, he's just rebellious, but that doesn't matter, he's my best and last shot after my wife gave up on me. Endeavor continued. She was hospitalized for months, with permanent mental scars. Yet you didn't even visit her once. All Might said with a concerned tone. She's just weak, and weaklings don't deserve my courtesy. If that weren't the case, I wouldn't have disowned my other worthless sons. Endeavor replied before walking away. But as Endeavor walked away towards the lounges, he felt a malicious aura coming from beside him. One that felt familiar to him, that of a villain's almost. Quickly turning around, he came face to face with Izuku. Hey, get lost kid, you're not supposed to be here. He said in his usual but intimidating tone. How many? Izuku asked silently. Huh? How many of your sons have you disowned for not living up to your expectations? Izuku said in a pissed off attitude. None of your beeswax kid. Now get lost before I burn you to a crisp. Threatened Endeavor, pointing his right hand at Izuku's face. Izuku brushed it aside, walking away. Enji, completing overlooking him, headed inside. Why are you a hero? Izuku suddenly asked before Endeavor entered his lounge. What? Endeavor replied. Heroes are meant to maintain peace and equality among people, they are meant to represent a goal that anyone can achieve. You don't fit into that category. Izuku continued. I really don't understand you kid, now hurry up and scram if you don't want to get cremated. I'm in a good mood today, and I don't want weaklings entering my personal space to ruin it. Endeavor replied. A pretty bad case irony, considering you are a weakling yourself. Izuku said softly, but enough to trigger Endeavor. What was that? He shot up in a burst of flame. Face it Endeavor, or should I said Enji, you were always a weakling and will remain weak for the rest of your life. Izuku continued, tipping him off. I am the number 2 hero in a roster of hundreds, with a number of captured criminals higher than All Might's, so tell me, what exactly makes me weak, to the point where a pipsqueak like you is saying it? He roared at Izuku. There was a silence. So why haven't you surpassed him yet? Izuku replied sternly. The flames faded as Izuku's words impaled Endeavor like a javelin, leaving him at a loss for words. You claim to be so strong, but you gave up trying to surpass All Might, instead wanting your own children to do the job for you. You always claimed to be at your golden age, but instead of persevering, you strayed from the very path you set, hiding behind your own children, because you don't have any more self-confidence that you can do it yourself. Izuku scolded. Stop it Endeavor uttered. Aren't heroes supposed to help people? Aren't they supposed to make every kid smile upon appearing? You must be a failure in your field as not even your own child will smile at you. Look at yourself, the great Endeavor, abuser of women, disowner of children, the man who only cares about being number 1 that he actually beats his own children. What a hero. I want to be like him when I grow up daddy. Will be what every kid says. Izuku continuously bashed Endeavor. Stop it. Endeavor said with a pissed off tone as his flames relight. Wait, I thought of a good idea. You just want to beat All Might, right? You just want to be the strongest, right? Nothing else in the hero business seems to interest you, and you pretty much already violate 5 different laws already by abusing your family. If only strength interests you, why don't you just quit being a hero, so you can prove your strength without being restrained by the law? Why not before a vigilante? Why not join the army? Why not be a villain? Izuku said, hitting the ultimate bullseye in Endeavor's nerves. Shut up. Endeavor said as he blasted Izuku with a wall of flame, melting the stone walls, turning them into molten lava, and setting off every single fire alarm. As the flames ceased, Endeavor suddenly realized what he was doing, snapping back into reality. Oh god, what have I done? He said to himself as he stopped his flames, as the sprinklers went off, forming a wall of smoke. Kid. Are you okay? He said nervously, as sweat dripped down his forehead. Suddenly, a silhouette emerged from the smokes as a small sigh of relief came to Endeavor, but was instantly overtaken with panic as he saw the state Izuku was in. His uniform's top half was incinerated. He must have tried to block the flames with his right arm because it was charred black, a severe burn mark ran all the way up to his cheek. So now you stoop so low that you even a mere pipsqueak like me can provoke you? You sicken me. Izuku uttered weakly as he stumbled away in pain. Kid. Wait. Endeavor called out in guilt. Don't apologize, because I get it now, Todoroki is not a son to you, he's but a puppet, a toy, he is the personification and the seat of your arrogance. Izuku said, still stumbling away. Kid, please, at least let me take you to the infirmary. Endeavor insisted. It doesn't matter. Izuku continued, as if he didn't even hear Endeavor's pleas, because I will crush your son in front of a live audience, and then, once you disown him, you'll have nothing. After those words, Izuku passed out, falling face first onto the hard cement floor. Endeavor walked up to Izuku, picking him up and headed to the infirmary. Even though no one was there, he felt thousands of eyes staring him down in disappointment. It was his walk of shame. At the infirmary, Recovery Girl heard the door open and headed to he in trance. Well, hello there, young Enji, and what, the Recovery Girl exclaimed at the sight of the injured Izuku. I lost control, things happened so fast. Leave the kid to me, you'll have some explaining to do to the press. The old lady said as she laid Izuku down on an operation table. Endeavor looked dejected. So he sat near the waiting room when Todoroki suddenly walked by, seeing his father in a state he had never saw him before. Dad? Todoroki asked as his father turned his head away in guilt. What's going on? Why is my dad suddenly like this? Todoroki thought when the number 2 hero called him. Entering the infirmary, his eyes widened at the sight of Izuku before turning to his dad. Did you do this? He asked in disbelief. No answer. Izuku, what did you do? Chapter 24. The news conference showed up as most of Class A was informed of Endeavor's mysterious outburst that nearly killed a student, going as far as to putting the sports festival on a 1-hour hold. Cameras flashed in the flame-bearded hero's face, with news reporters bombarding him with so many questions that he couldn't answer even if he wanted to. Back in the infirmary, Izuku was lying in his bed, clutching his plastered arm, with bandages going all the way up to his cheek. According to Recovery Girl, she can heal the wound, but it is preferable for him to sit out the fight. With obvious reasons, he refused. He was within reach of permanently breaking the number 2 hero, whose reputation had already taken a bad hit. Turning to his right, he could hear the bumbling sound of students at the door of the infirmary, all wanting to see him. The usual visits are limited to 5 people at max, but over 50 showed up, some worried, others pissed off that he was getting attention, others wanting to know the full story of how he pissed off Endeavor, to the point where he nearly got killed by him. The nurse showed up, asking who he would like to see. Shoto, let me see Shoto, Todoroki, and no one else. Izuku replied. Minutes passed, and the young, white-haired lad walked in to see his bedridden opponent. You wanted to see me, Izuku? Asked the cold-hearted student. I wanted to know more about you, Todoroki-san. Izuku replied, patting an empty spot of his bed, offering him a seat. The boy sat near the burn victim, carefully examining his arm. My dad did this to you? He asked. Yeah, not surprising either. Dude's got quite the temper, and is merciless too. You present him a hostage situation, he'll probably burn the target, the hostage, and even a bus full of children that just so happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Izuku said with a joking attitude. Todoroki's face remained like stone, unfazed by Izuku's optimistic attitude. Why did he do it? He's usually unfazed by what ordinary people say to him. He asked again. Never underestimate the power of words, Todoroki, which actually brings me to my question, what did Endeavor do to you? Asked Izuku. Izuku suddenly felt the tension rise in the room. He could see Todoroki twitching as he gripped tightly the bed, as if he was having Vietnam flashbacks. Izuku was about to snap him out of his trance until the boy spoke up. I never met either of my brothers, they were failures, forget about them. My dad always said. He started. Did he hurt you? Izuku asked. Todoroki flinched at the subject, the way he reacted to his question answered everything. I know, it's ludicrous, right? Have you ever wondered why someone so evil can remain a hero? Much less have kids? Izuku said. But that only seemed to upset Todoroki even more. My mother had mentally snapped, she, who was my only safe haven from my abusive father, had burned my face with scalding water. She now stays bedridden, a husk of her former self. She's gone, my only sunshine is gone, broken by the very man the society dares to call a hero. Todoroki muttered in anger. Izuku listened carefully every word and grinned. He's losing faith in heroes, just as planned, now, just one final push. Thought Izuku, as he spoke up. I too was hurt in the past. You see, my quirk developed late and only under extreme circumstances. So for a huge chunk of my life, I thought I was quirkless. If you think working to be the strongest is hard, trying starting out the weakest. I was beaten every day, had my dreams laughed at and was spat on the face several times. Then the day came when I had met a certain hero. I asked him if someone who was quirkless can become a hero, and you know what he said. What? Todoroki replied. Sorry kid, you can't. Izuku said, no sugarcoating, no encouraging speech, just a big blunt no. He couldn't have. Heroes are meant to inspire, not deny. Todoroki complied in disbelief. Inspire those that have quirks, Todo-kun. It was in fact at that point where even the people I looked up at turned their backs on me that I have developed my quirk. In fact, had it not been the fact that my quirk activated the second I actually jumped off a building, I would be dead, and driving a kid to suicide would have been on that hero's resume. Todoroki clenched the sheet of the bed after hearing that. It must have been rough, huh? Asked Todoroki. Hey, don't feel sorry for me, I'm supposed to do that for you. We were both victims of the true nature of heroes, aren't we? Izuku continued, that's my reason of coming here. I was hoping that, through the power of words, not quirk, I can bring the world to a new light. Where no one would have quirks be their defining feature, where the quirkless can be just as useful as the quirked. You are a prime example of victims of heroes, together, we can bring down this corrupt establishment and reconstruct a better world. What do you say? Todoroki sighed. I refuse. Izuku froze. What? I said I refuse. Listen Izuku, although I detest my father with every fiber of my being, not all heroes are alike. I will become the top-ranked hero without the use of my father's quirk to show him he played no impact on my life, and I have no plans to change that goal. My father may hate All Might, but he is in fact my role model. I don't know what you are truly after, but I hope you best of luck Izuku, get better soon. He finished, leaving the room. Izuku, looking at the door where he left in shock, muttered to himself. I see, it's still too early. Fine, I'll just have to wait it out and show him the true nature of most heroes. Izuku said to himself, I'll take this time to heal up and then crush that ice boy. Hours passed and the 16-man tournament has started. Prior to this tournament, Izuku had just gotten a call from the league, claiming that the raid was a smashing success and now, they were heading back with the hero data files. Izuku smiled at their subordinate success, now praying mentally that they can yield the same results. As the students came through the door, the sound of cheers doubled at the arrival of Izuku, who had just recovered from his burn. Alright. Now that everyone's here, we will decide the matchups by drawing lots. Starting with the first. Hold on. I'd like to drop out. Ejiro suddenly announced, butting off midnight. The crowd fell into shock. Why Ejiro? Isn't this your chance to get recognized? Some of the people asked. I know, but I can't remember a thing during the cavalry match. It just feels like cheating to have this position literally given to you while everyone else attained it using their own strength. Ejiro explained. Ejiro had Aoyama and Niranjeki in his team, which means the culprit must be Izuku analyzed, Shinso. I'd like to drop out too. Suddenly announced Niranjeki. Yup, definitely Shinso. Izuku declared. Midnight gave out a sadistic grin. Alright then, since 2 members dropped out, we will have the 5th place team member Tetsu and Shiozaki fill in the gaps. She announced. As the matchups were made, Izuku felt a menacing presence behind him. Midoriya, that's you right? Asked a baggy-eyed purple-haired kid. Why? Before Izuku could answer, Ejiro put his tail over Izuku's mouth. Izuku, whatever you do, don't answer that guy. During the recreational events, at the lounge. The brainwashing quirk? Izuku asked. Yeah, my mind went blank and my body was moving to his command the second I responded to him. Ejiro said. So all I need to do is stay silent when he talks. Izuku said to himself. That's not all, towards the end of the cavalry match, I ran into Tetsu's formation and was snapped back into reality. Ejiro replied, so I guess your best bet, given your wind quirk, is to blow him off the stage with a huge gust. Izuku thought for a moment. No, I think there is another way around this. He mumbled. Really? Asked Ejiro. I'm not 100% sure if it works yet. You see, my quirk functions by absorbing the oxygen in the atmosphere, usually by breathing, then amplifying its power when I exhale, hence creating tornadoes. I can also freely manipulate any form of air I exhale for a brief period of time, the smaller the amount of air the better. Izuku explained. What are you implying? Ejiro asked. Izuku grinned. Well, I'm glad you asked. Hey. Are you guys ready? Yelled the announcer, aka Present Mick, it's time for the one-on-one tournament. The 2 first fighters stepped out of the arena. The first match is coming underway. From the hero course, giving you a surprise after surprise and even surviving an attack from the No.2 hero only 2 hours prior. It's Izuku Midoriya. The crowd cheered in excitement. Back home, the neighborhood where Izuku lived had several reports of a low-level flood. Little did the neighborhood know, the liquid that formed a giant 2-inch deep puddle wasn't water, but tears coming from a very, very proud mother. Izuku, my baby. You always wanted this, didn't you? Inko cried tears of joy as her entire house, all the way up to her waist, was filled with her tears. And from the general department, the kid who has done nothing to stand out but somehow always comes out on top, Shinso. The two contestants met up face to face at the center as the announcer continued to explain the rules. Of course, going for the kill is prohibited and any contestant that does so will immediately be disqualified, explained President Mick. I give up. Huh. Get it, Midoriya? This battle is truly a test of will. Shinso taunted Izuku, if you've got any kind of vision for your future, there's no sense in worrying about how you get here. Izuku remembered Tajiro's suggestion. Luckily, in terms of insults and taunts, he's had half his current worth of training to resist verbal abuse, coming from classmates to heroes alike, so Shinso's tactics were ineffective. Instead, he slowly exhaled. Begin. Announced President Mick in the background while Shinso whispered. Like a monkey babbling about his pride. Shinso continued, what kind of idiot would throw away a... Suddenly, before Shinso could finish his sentence, something felt wrong. He was already out of breath. Trying to inhale, he found himself unable to. Suddenly, with a satisfied grin, Izuku spoke. Throw what away? Something wrong? Have breathing problems? Asked Izuku. What's going on? Why can't I inhale? Any air that enters my lungs feels wrong, I can't, Shinso's thought as his head was going hazy. Whoa whoa whoa. What do we have here? President Mick exclaimed, it almost seems like Shinso's about to pass out. The announcer's right, you know. You do look pretty terrible. Izuku said, inhaling a huge amount of air as Shinso dropped to one knee, maybe you should get some fresh air. Suddenly, a powerful gust similar to a Category 3 tornado blasted across the battlefield, sending the suffocating hypnotist flying off the stage. Wow, that actually worked. With practice, maybe I can turn that into a special move. Flashback. Back in the waiting room. So here's my idea, Shinso needs oxygen to talk, right? What if I use that to my advantage and cut off his oxygen supply? Asked Izuku. How are you gonna do that? Isn't your quirk to control and amplify the air you exhale? Asked Ajiro, confused. You clearly haven't learned basic science, Ajiro. Keep in mind, the air I fire is just my breath. Remember, humans are the opposite of plants when it comes to breathing. Plants inhale CO2, or carbon dioxide, and expel O2, which is basically our breathable oxygen. But us humans do the reverse, we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, Ajiro finished. Exactly. Izuku ended. So your wind is actually composed of carbon dioxide? Ajiro asked. Exactly, I'm currently thinking of making a move where I create a ball of carbon dioxide and discreetly launch it at my opponents, surrounding his head in a ball of CO2. People won't be able to breathe unless they can outrun the ball, and judging by Shinso's physique, he's not going anywhere. Izuku finished. How many times have you tried this? Asked Ajiro. Never. This will be my first time. Izuku remembered as the flashback ended. Ajiro, sitting in the bleachers, clapped his hands, seeing his classmate emerge victorious. Shinso is out of the ring. Midnight announced, Midoriya moves to the second round. Midoriya runs over to the lightly injured student, picking him off the floor. The teen, however, slapped his hand aside in an aggressive manner. I don't need your courtesy, I can handle myself. He said in a dejected tone, before walking off. Izuku, despite all that's happened and all the heroes he killed without a second thought, however, couldn't help but feel a little bad. Even before entering Yuuei, he knew some students here were here for good reasons, and that only reinforced his hatred towards heroes. The last thing he wanted was for the industry to get to these poor saplings, burning with potential, once more only looking for fame, and blindly turning their eyes on the ones who truly needed saving. And now, a kid with a dream that was seemingly broken stood in front of him. Hey. Izuku called out, you did amazing too, Shinso. For a moment there, I had to actually bite my tongue to prevent myself from talking. Don't lose hope, okay? Shinso, on the other hand, smiled back. Who said I was giving up? He responded with a determined look, I will become a hero, this failure won't stop me. But hey, you're not that bad yourself, so unless you get your ass handed to you, I'm fine with being defeated at your hands. With that, Shinso walked off. The next match was Todoroki vs Zero. Before the match started, however, while Todoroki was heading to the stadium, he met face to face with the man he can only force himself to call dad. Only, this time around, he didn't look as pissed off as he should have. Todoroki clenched his fist when he walked by him, expecting his father to yell at him for struggling so much in the two previous events. Rage boiled up in his body as he could easily read his father's lips. You still have the guts to show up here after burning one of my classmates, he thought as the flame hero opened his mouth to speak. Then Dad. I know what you're gonna say. Use your damn quirk, Shoto. Stop rebelling, Shoto. Your mom didn't hospitalize herself for a disappointment like you, Shoto. I don't give a crap about surpassing All Might, and even if I was, it won't be for you. he said, speeding past his father before he could even say a word. I'll win using mom's powers alone. I'll never stoop to your level. As Todoroki sped past Endeavor, the flame hero tried to clench his fist, but his hand only briefly formed a fist before calming back down. All I wanted to say was good luck, son. Yet you didn't even give me a chance. Shoto, have I really been that bad of a father? Back out in the stadium, the announcer started the second battle. I don't really feel like winning, said Zero in a lazy fashion. Suddenly, tape shot out of his elbows as he wrapped up Todoroki and sent him flying towards the edge. But I don't feel like losing either. Suddenly, Todoroki's eyes ignited with murderous intent as in a fraction of a second, a giant glacier formed over the stadium, completely encasing Zero. The whole crowd was rendered speechless and even Izuku's jaws had dropped. That's a little overkill, no? Asked Zero. Zero, can you move? Asked Midnight, also half frozen. Hell no. Well, that settles it. Shoto. Todoroki moves on to the next match. Before leaving, Shoto looked at Izuku with a murderous glare as Izuku glared back. I hope you're ready, Endeavor. Once we fight, I'll expose your true nature, even if it means hospitalizing your son. Thought Izuku. Chapter 26. The battle between Todoroki and Zero had shown Izuku that taking down Todoroki will be no easy task. His ice versatility beyond one's wildest comprehension. However, from what he saw, it seemed that he had one massive weakness, a personal one to boot. He had noticed that throughout the 3 events, he had never used his fire side even once, but while everyone was taken aback by the massive glacier sprouting out of the arena, he had activated his fire quirk on the entire right side of his body, attempting to regulate his body heat that was covered in bits of ice. So he can't overuse one side of his quirk and refuses to use his other side to balance himself out. My best course of action then would be to. Hey Izuku. A voice called out from behind him, snapping him out of his trance. Turning around while hiding his notebook, he met face to face with his brunette friend, Uraraka. But something seemed off with her, which he immediately pointed out. Hey Chako, what's with the furrowed brows? Izuku asked with a hint of surprise. Brows? I guess I'm just a little nervous. I didn't know it was that apparent, though, she responded. You've been to the middle of the stadium before, right? What's there to be nervous about? Asked Izuku. Her opponent is Bakugo, I believe that's the reason. Iida replied, entering the room. I see, Izuku said, sitting back down, knowing that with Iida walking in, a long conversation was inevitable. I guess you are right to be afraid. The dude can't socialize too with anyone save his life, but in terms of combat, he's a natural. But certainly, he wouldn't use his explosion quirk on a girl, right? Asked Iida. He will, definitely. In fact, seeing how often you hang around me, I wouldn't be surprised if he went extra hard on you. Frankly, I feel guilty, because if he hospitalizes you, it's probably gonna be because of me. Izuku replied. Uraraka shuddered at his comment. What's his deal anyway? Why does the guy hate you so much? Asked the brunette. It's because he's in denial. Izuku said. Denial? Asked Iida, confused. I was a late bloomer, so for the vast majority of my life, everyone thought I was quirkless. But my drive of becoming a hero annoyed him. I always represented rock bottom in his eyes. As far down as he can sink, he always thought it would be impossible to sink lower than me. He was hoping to move up in life, graduate Yuuei, and finally leave me in the dust. Izuku started to explain. So having you be here, it gives him the feeling that he isn't progressing. Iida finished. He simply can't accept the fact that I have the ability to progress at an even rate, possibly even higher. He hates me because he can't shake me off. The fact that he is still within my reach, the fact that I'm no longer quivering in fear, the fact that I have changed, is what drives him crazy. Izuku finished as he got up, heading towards the exit. Upon turning the knob, his fist shook a little. He just won't grow out of it, it sickens me. On that note, he left the room, slamming the door behind him. On his way to the stadium, however, he ran face to face once more into Katsuki. Hey. Get out of my way, you shit. He said in his normal aggressive tone, bumping into him aggressively, forcing Izuku off balance. Still treating me like trash, typical. Izuku said to himself softly, picking himself off the floor as the match between Kirishima and Tetsu had just concluded in a draw. I'll deal with you next after I'm done with Shoto. Blasts of flames resonated across the stadium. Achako tried in desperation to even touch Katsuki, only to get sent flying back like a ragdoll each time. All she needed was to touch him once and then float him off the stadium. Izuku watched the whole fight happen from his seat. Everything Katsuki was doing was perfectly expected, but even then, he couldn't help but to bite his lower lip to suppress his anger. After staying in Yuuei for so long, he knew that out of everyone in his class, Achako had every trait to be a true, legitimate hero, not those arrogant, self-serving pricks that have their names written on Stain's list of targets. Seeing her out there, even for a villain, was gut-wrenching. However, to his confusion, despite Uraraka's desperate charges, he could feel that she has a final plan. He can't tell what it is, but he can feel it. Uraraka eventually stopped her charge, taking a stance. Then it hit him. Looking up, tons of rumbles were gathered in the sky. She was intentionally letting herself get blown up so that she can use the debris as ammo. Just then, she let down, unleashing a meteor swarm upon Katsuki. But she made one mistake, she revealed her secret plan before using it. Even though the match wasn't over yet, Izuku knew it had been decided. Getting up, he slowly walked towards the infirmary, where she's most likely gonna get sent to after the match. Sure enough, a loud boom was heard, and Ichako was delivered into the infirmary on a stretcher and in tears. Looking at her broken down body, he could only clench his fist in anger, knowing that someone like him can still be qualified a hero. "Izuku, I lost," she said in pain and tears. "You did your best, Ichako, that's what matters." Izuku replied. I can't face my parents like this, not after what happened," she cried weakly. Images of Endeavor and Todoroki beaten up as a child flooded his head. First All Might, then Endeavor, and now Katsuki. These people actually got away with the atrocities they had done just because they were heroes. It was unforgivable. The voice came out of the intercom behind Izuku, announcing that Kirishima won the tiebreaker and that the next round between him and Todoroki was starting. The green-haired student shook with excitement as he can finally bring Endeavor to justice. He knew his anger was only gonna get in the way and knew that he had to let them go when fighting on the front line. So he gave Ichako a comforting smile and walked to the stadium. The crowd was radiating with excitement. As Izuku walked on stage, he could feel the intensity on stage. Todoroki stood before him, with his eyes poised on beating him. "Both these competitors have been at the top of the festival so far," yelled the announcer, "but there's only one room for these greats in the ring. It's..." Before the announcer finished, Izuku flashed a menacing grin at Todoroki, which legitimately took him off guard. Midoriya vs Todoroki. Looking behind Todoroki, Izuku saw Endeavor, watching the fight with the eyes of a hawk. Seeing his concerned look only made Izuku more giddy, imagining how he's gonna react to his own son getting pummeled. Begin. Immediately, Todoroki fired a massive glacier at Izuku, who, at the same time, fired a massive whirlwind to counter. The two attacks clashed, sending ice shards flying in all sorts of direction. The blast sent both competitors flying back. While Izuku was able to catch himself by quickly creating an air cushion behind him, Todoroki made an ice wall behind him as well, both saving each other from getting knocked out of the ring. The ice boy immediately launched a second glacier at Izuku, not giving him a chance to breathe. The ice covered him from head to toe, encasing him in a glacier noticeably smaller than the one he used against Zero. "Izuku's trapped in ice," yelled the announcer. Suddenly, the ice started to crack as Izuku busted out of his icy prison, surrounded in a miniature cyclone, before firing several blades of wind at Todoroki, who made another ice wall, blocking the blades. He then placed his hand on the broken down ice wall, causing it to expand and grow spikes, shooting straight at Izuku, who took a deep breath and fired back an equally large wind blast. The two attacks collided, creating another huge explosion. "Damn," said Iida in awe, witnessing the battle unfolding before them. "I knew they were strong, but this is on a whole other level." "No kidding, both Todoroki and Midoriya are seemingly even," said Ichako. "Even? Don't make me laugh," said Katsuki with a salty attitude, "can't you see? All Izuku is doing is suffocating himself every time he attacks. Such strain can be resolved by simply breathing. Meanwhile, look at Todoroki. His right side is covered in ice. He may not look the part, but he's at his limit." Back at the stadium, Izuku could see that his opponent was getting more and more sluggish. The quirk was finally taking its toll on him. Knowing this, he finally spoke up. "You're shivering, aren't you, Todoroki?" asked Izuku. "What? What are you talking about?" asked Todoroki in confusion. But as much as he tried to feint it, he really was taken by surprise at his sudden question. "Your quirk has its limits, doesn't it? So why haven't you used your left side to thaw yourself out?" asked Izuku. Todoroki seemed offended at his proposal, just as he expected. All he needed now was for him to let it out, in the middle of the stadium. All he needed now was a little push and the dam would break. Izuku fired another large whirlwind at him, which Todoroki blocked with another ice wall. But this time around, due to the weak state of the stadium, some of the debris from the ground were getting blown at him too, breaking through his barrier and hitting him directly on the forehead. The ice wall eventually broke and Todoroki was sent flying back, nearly falling out of bound. "Look at you, beaten up and bloodied, covered in frostbites. Your body is at its limit. So why haven't you gone all out yet? Thaw yourself out. Douse me in flames. Do something with that left side of yours," Izuku said. "What are you planning?" Todoroki asked as he wiped off the blood from his forehead. "Look at yourself. Izuku said, running at Todoroki. Stay back. He yelled as he sent several more ice shards towards his opponent. Izuku parried them easily, without even slowing down, and grabbed Todoroki by the collar and threw him towards the middle. He threw me away from the edge. Why would he do that? Todoroki thought to himself. Suddenly, Izuku hit him with another whirlwind, a much deadlier one. Within the storm, he felt the wind cutting into his flesh. Memories of his mother flooded his mind, his father, beating him up. "You're a failure, Shoto," he could hear his father say. "Prove to me that you can still be useful." How can he be so cruel? "I can't take it anymore," he then heard his mother cry out, "You sicken me." His memories faded with a face of insanity coming from his mother as flames enveloped her completely. He couldn't take it anymore, tears started to stream out of his eyes. "Mother was the only one who loved me, my sunshine. Why? Why did you take her away from me, Dad?" thought Todoroki, going through an emotional breakdown. "You took away everything from me. I'll never be like you, I'll never be like you." Suddenly, a massive glacier sprouted out of the whirlwind, dispelling it. The monolith then came shooting towards Izuku. "Oh, shy." Before he can finish his sentence, the entire stadium was encased in ice. The crowd went silent. But within the bewildered audience stood heartbroken father. Seeing him take those hits, unable to fight back. He couldn't help but to feel guilty. After Izuku had opened his eyes, he had realized how terrible he had treated his own son, and now, there his son stood, on the verge of potential death, all because he had pushed him to the point where he wouldn't use his fire quirk anymore. Izuku isn't winning because of his skill, he was winning because of him. The glacier collapsed, and both competitors were on the ground. Just then, Izuku stood up, lightly bruised. Todoroki, on the other hand, was lying in a pool of blood. This right side had gone purple from the amount of frostbites he sustained with that attack. Just then, Izuku stood up and yelled out in rage. "Is this what you wanted to lose? You had all the opportunities to defeat me and you chose not to. And for what? Why didn't you fight me at full power?" Izuku yelled out. "I'll never use it, I'll never be him," Todoroki said weakly as he struggled to get up. "Please Shoto, stop this," Endeavor mumbled while biting his lips. "Who's him? Have you been hiding something?" asked Izuku. No answers. "Well, to whoever you are, if you are even in the audience, I hope you're happy. It's because of you that this poor soul is in this state. I hope you're happy with yourself." "I'm not." "Okay. I've learned my lesson, so please stop," Endeavor thought as tears were streaming down his eyes. Todoroki eventually got up and slowly limped towards Izuku, trying to punch him. "Why are you still trying?" Izuku asked, kicking him in the stomach, making him cough out blood. "I have to win, I can't let him break me, I'll prove to him that I can win without his parts," Todoroki uttered desperately as he trying to land a punch. "I won't lose. Even if it kills me." "That's enough," yelled a man in the crowd. Suddenly, everyone turned to a man in the crowd, yelling at the two competitors in the stadium. No one could even recognize him, as tears were streaming down his face like a waterfall. "Please. You've done enough, Shoto. I've learned my mistakes. I'm sorry." The man continued to yell out. Todoroki looked back in awe. Was this really his father? Why does he suddenly care about him? What changed him? Why is he doing this? Regardless, a simple apology can't fix years after years of abuse, so he shook off his apologies, pretending that they were never heard. Izuku, on the other hand, heard him loud and clear. "So this is why you didn't want to use your fire quirk? Because you wanted to prove your daddy wrong? I thought you wanted to be a hero," Izuku asked. "My dad's no hero. He's an abusive, self-centered delusional posing as a hero. The only hero I want to be like is All Might," Todoroki responded. Endeavor's heart sunk after hearing that. After all this time, the weapon he was building up had actually admired the very man he was designed to surpass. And yet, he couldn't feel any anger, rather sadness. All of his sadness, his problems in life, his despair, he had pawned it off on his son, so that he could escape it. He took the coward's way out instead of confronting his own inner demons. Endeavor's suffering was clear, and Izuku read all of it. His plan had finally fallen into place. Endeavor is now broken, and Todoroki will soon turn to his side, a great victory on his part. However, he had made one fatal mistake, he never thought up of a plan B. Just then, Endeavor's body reignited into flames. The crowd that was staring at him had dropped their jaws at the revelation that that crying, sorry excuse of a man was in fact the number 2 hero Endeavor. "Shoto, I know I've been a terrible father, but please, let my words reach you one last time. Shoto. For once in your life, please listen to what I have to say," he cried out in a deafening roar. "You'll never become All Might," he started, immediately making Todoroki look away, "but you'll never become me either." Just then, Todoroki's dead eyes reignited as Izuku was shocked at Endeavor's sudden action. "I wanted to make you strong, but I know that deep down, you're not me. I want you to surpass All Might, but also for you to forge your own identity as well." The man who will surpass All Might will not be named Enji, but Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki uttered, as tears leaked from the corner of his eyes. I have passed down my quirk to you, but not my spirit. Forge your own identity, Shoto. Take those flames and make them your own. You're not bound by my blood. Continued the flaming hero. What is going on here? Is this a fighter TV drama? Yelled present Mick. Just then, Izuku's eyes practically bulged out of their sockets after hearing Enji's next words. It's like All Might once said. Just then, another memory flashed by Todoroki's eyes. It was the first time he saw All Might on TV. He smiled at every word he said, as though they were directed to him. And then, those same words passed by once more. You are who you decide to become. Suddenly, flames erupted from Todoroki's body, and in a blazing inferno, the ice on his body melted off, and he slowly stood up. I want to be a hero. Standing before Izuku was no longer the tortured crying Todoroki, but a kid who was truly inspired to win. However, he couldn't just let something like this pass, it was just too surreal. Enji. Izuku yelled out with a smile as wind gathered around him, you've gone and done it. You've finally exposed your true self to the world and threw away that pride you were known for. It's all over for you now. With your secret exposed, the world will know who you really are. You are no longer a hero. He looked over at Endeavor, however, he was crying, but not from sadness, but from pride in his son. Seeing him smile only pissed him off even more. Fine. Smile all you want, you ex-hero. Izuku yelled out, as the clouds above were swirling around the stadium, you made a wonderful speech and sacrifice. Shame it will all be in vain, once I pummel your son even with his fire side unleashed. Suddenly, a tornado fist formed around Izuku's hand, one that would even send All Might flying. The sheer strain the wind was having on his body caused Izuku to cough out blood. Meanwhile, flame erupted from Shoto's body, as the air around him caught fire. Seeing this, Midnight and Cementus quickly activated their quirks to minimize the damage. If this hits, they are both done for. Thought the refs as they tried to stop the two. The cement walls and sleep gas were not enough to even slow them down, however, as the two attacks clashed, it caused a massive explosion, similar to that of meteor impact. The crowd was blown away, and even the pro heroes were struggling to stay put. Class A, upon seeing this, were completely speechless, even Katsuki could. The power struggle didn't show any signs of stopping, however, and was stronger than ever. Slowly, Izuku was gaining the advantage, as he can feel the bones in Todoroki's arm breaking and blood gushing out. The flames were also making its way towards his left side, as his skin was burning from overusing his quirk. Slowly but surely, the fire was fizzling away, and Todoroki was slowly getting pushed back. It's over, Shoto. Give up. Izuku roared as he was overpowering the flames. I can't, not yet, Todoroki uttered, I have only started a new chapter in my life, I will not let you tear it down. Suddenly, a massive shock of pain pulsated through Izuku's arms, as blood started gushing out of it. The burn I took from Endeavor. Go beyond, Shoto. Endeavor cried as father and son roared in unison. Plus ultra. The wind dispelled, as Izuku was swallowed by the flames, causing a massive shockwave that parted the clouds. What is with your class? Present Mick asked, knocked off his seat. As Midnight slowly stood up from getting knocked off her feet, she tried to make out what happened. As the smoke cleared, she saw Todoroki, lying unconscious on the ground, his left arm was purple from blood loss, and bent in 4 different directions, the entire top half of his uniform was ripped apart, revealing his cut up and bruised but muscular body. Todoroki has been knocked out. The announcer called out, but. Turning to the edge of the arena, Izuku was embedded to the side of the stadium. Midoriya is out of bounds, Todoroki moves on to next round. Midoriya lost to Chako said to herself. However, most of the crowd were more interested in Endeavor's sudden behavior, but when they turned to his seat, he was nowhere to be found. So many of his fans started an outrage, crying over how this festival ruined their image of the stoic and cold badass. As the staff was trying to get the crowd to calm down in the meantime, Endeavor was waiting for his son in the infirmary. His right arm is in shambles, and the rest of his body isn't looking too good either. Explained recovery girl, I'm afraid that with these injuries, he might need to forfeit his 3rd match. It's alright, I understand. Replied Endeavor in his civilian clothing. You'll have to go through surgery soon, I suggest you leave too, I work better when I'm alone. She continued, signaling the fire hero to the exit. Meanwhile, with Izuku, he had just walked out of the infirmary. His injuries were less severe compared to Todoroki's, so he healed rather quickly. What he didn't expect, however, was to get ambushed by all of his classmates on his way out. Mido dear Yaku. They all called out at the exact same time, causing the two names to get jumbled up. Oh, hi guys. Answered their almost winner. What the hell were you doing? There's a riot happening in the stadium, the press are scouting the entire building to interview Endeavor, and all because of your fight against Todoroki. Said Iida. Yeah. You went way too overboard. I heard he nearly died. Continued Mineta. Yeah, sorry, it was my bad. Huh. Where's Ichako? Asked Izuku, noticing that she wasn't there. She got a call from home and went out. Explained Momo. Wait, like, outside the stadium? Asked Izuku. Yeah, why? Not good, Izuku mumbled to himself, walking past everyone. Where are you going? Asked Sayu. I need to do something real quick, be right back. He replied. Crap, the raid group was gonna come pick me up after their mission, hopefully I'm not too late. Thought Izuku, making a mad dash for the exits. Outside. Sachi was hanging around in the parking lot after seeing the fight Izuku had with Todoroki. He needed to buy a drink, all that gasping and jaw drops made him thirsty. Just then, he ran into a girl, a young brunette, on her phone, crying. Feeling sort of bad, he went up to see what was wrong. Yeah, I understand, okay, bye daddy. She said as tears were flowing down her eyes. Hey. Is everything alright, little girl? Asked the guy as he walked up to her after she hung up. Startled, she turned around to see who was talking to her. It was a male, a little bit scrawny, about 6'1", wearing a light brown jacket over a white shirt with a silver chain necklace dangling from his neck, and was wearing old baggy jeans and a red beanie that covered half of his brown eyes, with a small puff of beard on his chin, and was carrying a backpack. I needed to describe him cause I totally forgot to add his physical description in my story. You were crying, are you okay? Are you lost? Asked Sachi. No, it's just family business. Ichako mumbled. Oh, do tell, it drives me crazy not knowing the reason behind people's pain. Sachi responded. Ichako hesitated for a second but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. He didn't look like a bad guy and had a friendly smile with Kinder reminded her of Izuku to boot. An accident happened at my dad's construction company last night and the worker is filing a lawsuit against him, he might go bankrupt. She explained in a somber tone. Suddenly, Sachi's face shifted from helping to concerned, as if her description reminded him of something that happened in his life. He worked so hard just for me, and yet the man who sued him seemed so aggressive for a mistake he himself made. I'm the only reason he pushes forward. I feel so guilty I can't help. She started crying again. Suddenly, Sachi reached into his backpack and pulled out a huge stack of 10,000 yen, handing it to Ichako. Here, it may not be much, but it should be enough to pay for all of your school fees and basic needs. Now your father won't have to spend off all of his savings on you. It's not much, but it's the least I can do. Responded Sachi. Oh, no thanks, I don't take handouts. She reluctantly pushed away his money, surprised at how much a man like that had and wondering if he didn't just win the lottery. Oh, it's fine, take it as a donation. Sachi replied, passing her the money, then getting back upright and walking away. I can't let such a nice and caring father go through what my dad went through. That last phrase shocked her, what his dad went through. He seemed sensitive on the subject too, what happened to his dad? Who was he? Hey wait. Who are you? Asked Ichako. I dunno, maybe civilian, maybe a hero, maybe a villain. He responded, I'm however you decide I am. Ichako was left speechless, as if the man just gave him a riddle. Whoever she decides he was. What does that mean? Todoroki woke up on a hospital bed, looking around, he saw his dad, sitting right next to him. Dad? What are you doing here? Asked Todoroki. What does it look like? I'm here to apologize. He replied. Apologize? You did that already didn't you? Asked Todoroki a second time. No, not for abusing you as a child. Rather, something else. Replied his dad. What is it? Just then, Enji got off his chair, groveling on the floor. I'm sorry for being weak. Dad, get up and explain, this isn't like you. Todoroki said, confused. And would you prefer it if I acted like me? Asked Enji, getting back up. No, that's not whatever, what do you mean, being weak? So you never found out either? I guess it wasn't due to my stupidity that I failed to realize what I had done. Enji replied. Which was? I gave up. All my life I tried to surpass All Might, it was what drives me, the reason I became a hero. But when I found out the gap between us was far too wide, I took the coward's way out. Instead of trying to keep up, I stopped jazzing and took out my frustration on my own sons. I pawned one of the most impossible tasks on mere children that had inspirations of their own goals that I neglected. I'm sorry for passing such a heavy burden to you, it must have been hard. Continued Enji. Todoroki was speechless, he never even dreamt of the day his dad would be apologizing to him, much less throw away his own pride while doing so. I now see how blind I really was, and it pains me to know that losing my first son was not enough to open my eyes. Enji finished. Just then, Todoroki felt something he didn't know was possible, he felt sorry for his dad, seeing him like this was never something he would have prepared for. Maybe you haven't forgiven just yet, and I fully understand that if you do. But remember, I'm not gonna hold you back anymore, but the hero you want to be, okay? Enji finished as he made his way towards the exits. Where are you going? Asked Todoroki. The press has been rioting for hours, trying to interview me, so I let them wait any longer, and we may actually need to send in pro-heroes to break things apart. I'm going down to stop them before they get too violent. It was about time I got the punishment I deserve anyways. Enji said while opening the door. Oh, and one more thing, Shoto, tell me when you're visiting your mother, I might tag along, should they let me go early. And with that, he left the room, softly closing the door. In the meantime, Izuku had finally met up with Sachi. Hey there Sachi, I suppose the raid was a success? Asked Izuku. Yup, info and everything, we got them all on this USB drive. Sweet. Izuku replied, immediately opening his laptop and plugging in the key to see the contents. As per expected, the list of every heroes, villains, personal information, weaknesses, notable injuries, they were all there. But then, something strange caught his eye. In the files, there was a classified info pile, and upon opening it, he was met with different non-public events and a list of heroes that retired without public announcements for different reasons. Heroes who do this usually just mysteriously vanish to the public that he knew, but amongst one of the heroes, one made his heart practically stop. In one of the hero files, it read. Hero name. Psy Storm. Rank. 3. Age. 20. Age of retirement. 27. Quirk. Psychokinesis. So far, everything was normal, but what shocked him was the hero's true identity. Name. Inko Midoriya. Mom. Chapter 27. As the fights concluded, the award ceremony had started. Kitsuki, restrained with iron cuffs and pinned to a cement wall, violently thrashed in anger, his mouth gagged, able only to make muffled roars. On the podium next to him, Tokoyami attempted to avoid eye contact with the violent beast, but with all of his roars of anger, it was hard not to look. In second place we have Iida, but he had to leave due to a family emergency. Explained Midnight. Really shame, he was so pumped for this event as well, commented Sayu. Kirishima remembered clearly what happened when he told everyone his brother was attacked by a villain. His energetic leader-like tone was replaced with a more worried and sad mutter. They could feel his pain as he left the stadium. I hope he's alright. He commented. And now, for the medals, presenting them this year is. Suddenly, timing perfectly to Midnight's announcement, a tall, muscular man in spandex flipped into the stadium. All Might. I am here with the medals. He called out in his stoic voice. Man, first year really is something else, even All Might came to watch. Commented people in the crowd. First, he went to Tokoyami, putting the medal around his neck. Congratulations young Tokoyami, you're a strong one. Complimented All Might. You honor me too highly. The crowhead responded in modesty. Own your innate strength to open a world of opportunity, but relying on quirk alone can't overcome a bad matchup. Explained All Might, giving his verdict on the student. He then turned to Iida's podium. And now for young Hagakure. He said, confused at why there was an empty podium. Iida had to leave early due to family matters. Midnight explained. Oh, once you meet him, tell him he did an amazing job and that his brother would be proud. He told Midnight before turning to an enraged Kitsuki. Upon removed his gag though, he allowed Kitsuki to immediately drop a giant F-bomb on the entire stadium. All Might, this win doesn't mean squat. Did you really think I'd accept a win by fucking default? First Todoroki fails to show up from round 3 due to his injuries, and then Iida ditches me in the final round after beating Tokoyami because family matters. It doesn't matter what anyone says, this medal doesn't mean shit unless I recognize it. Itsuki yelled out, his eyes so fierce, they were literally popping out of their sockets. What a fearsome face in a world that's constantly graded on a curve, there aren't many who can continuously be on top. Said All Might, so accept this. As a wound even. So that you don't forget. I told you I don't need that piece of junk. Kitsuki yelled back. After All Might placed his medal on Kitsuki's teeth. He turned to the crowd. Well, here are your winners, but hold on everyone. He said, anyone has the potential to be standing up here, as you all witnessed. Competition. Encouragement. Pushing each other to go higher and higher. The sprouts of today will become the heroes of tomorrow. In spirit, let's have one final cheer. Say it with me, 1, 2 and. Plus all. Thanks for the hard work. All Might cheered, confusing everyone. We're supposed to say plus ultra All Might, Midnight explained. Oh right, it's just they did work so hard and All Might uttered in embarrassment. Anyone has the potential. What a load of crap. Said Dobby, watching the TV broadcast. Yeah. When do we kill the guy? Asked Spinner. When the boss tells us to. Answered Magni. Oh right, wait, didn't you lose the fight against your little brother? Asked Mr. Compress. I'm just as shocked as you, I didn't think the kid could pull it off. Answered Dabi, although it was nice seeing old Pops in tears, Izuku did give us that to laugh at. Oh, when can I see him? I miss my Izuku so much. Cried Toga, lying upside down on a nearby couch. Sachi said the group was coming back soon after a celebratory drink and that they were gonna pick him up on the way back, but they still haven't returned. Replied Kurogiri, cleaning a beer mug. Suddenly, the door swung open and Toga, from instinct, leapt into the first guy she saw. Izuku, I've missed you so much. She cried out in joy. Nope, just your good old Sachi. Replied the guy she hugged. What? Where's Izuku? Toga asked with disappointment. He had an urgent meeting with the big boss, so I drove him there to drop him off first. Explained Sachi. Oh, but it's been so long. I wanna see him. I wanna. She thrashed around. Alright then, let's go meet him. Said Kurogiri. Really? Toga lunged at the black misted bartender with sparkles in her eyes. Of course, anything for young master's girlfriend. Kurogiri replied. Then I'll be coming too, just wanna congratulate him for his fight. Dabi replied with a lazy but genuine smile. I'm coming too. Can't just leave friend alone. Twice leaped in. Same here, he's a cool guy after all, and one that acknowledges my gaming skills and appreciates my outfit, Spinner replied. Alright then, let's go. Sachi finished off as Kurogiri opened up a portal and the gang walked in. The dark torn-down warehouse that looked like something straight out of a horror game was nothing more than the reception room to Izuku, as he had been here dozens upon dozens of time, exchanging information, seeking guidance, or just asking for another type of quirk enhancer drug to be made. This time, however, he wasn't here for any of those, he was here for answers. Good evening, all for one. Izuku greeted. Good evening, my young apprentice, what can I do for you this time? Asked the masked man. Izuku immediately pulled out his phone, showing him Inko's hero card. Seeing this and the upset look on Izuku's face, the man gave froze, looking at the card for a while, with a concerned look that can be read through the tinted glass mask. I should have known that you would eventually find out. Muttered the villain. Find out what? Asked Izuku. The truth about, well, your very existence. All for one explained in a somber tone. My existence? Asked Izuku. Yeah, think about it, your mother has telekinesis and your dad can breathe fire, yet you never wondered how you ended up quirkless. Asked All for One. Well Izuku tried to answer, but couldn't find anything to say. All for One, upon seeing this, took a deep breath, as if he was about to tell a long story, which he was. Sit down young one, because it is time you learned the truth about the Midoriya family. Explained All for One. Alright then, indulge me. Izuku responded, sitting on a nearby chair. It all started 30 years ago, long before your birth. Inko and Hisashi met each other in Yuuei during their sports festival. Inko had a powerful quirk that allowed her to lift things with her mind, a form of telekinesis if you will. Hisashi, on the other hand, was unable to make it to the hero course and joined the support department instead. His quirk, Burn Breath, allows his body to perform different kinds of combustion on the inside with ingested chemicals and shoot out the emission in the form of fire. Him being in the support department gave him access to different tools to tinker with and improve his quirk. He started to work on digestible chemicals that can change his fire's property with harming his body. I've seen him spit all forms of fire depending on what he consumes, fire, blue fire, white fire, napalm, burning ash, magma, you name it. After the sports festival, during their fight, Inko suddenly broke down crying in the middle of their battle. She couldn't bring herself to turn Hisashi, no matter how hard she tried, despite being fully capable of sending him flying. 30 years ago. Why are you crying? Asked a young Hisashi. Sniff because you truly understand me. Apparently Inko couldn't get herself to many friends. Her quirk was powerful, but it doesn't suit her personality, she was shy and oftentimes would hurt others by accident. This was back in the early days, where quirks were still being discovered, there was a belief that quirks often reflect one's personality. Because of that, the students of Yuuei believed her to be some sort of delinquent, ferocious and without scrutiny. Hisashi was the only person for a long time to have given her a second chance. Seeing how tortured she was, he spent most of his time with her after the sports festival, while most would avoid her. They started calling Hisashi the Lion Tamer because he was able to hang around the rumored Yuuei's most dangerous student. The two quickly grew close to one another and after graduation, the two pursued their hero career together. While Hisashi was lacking in speed and defense, Inko, with her quirk, quickly climbed to the top 10. She had at one point even reached number 1, but quickly lost that rank to Nana Shimura, so she settled as the number 3 hero. There was but one catch, she insisted to be called the kind hero Esper, but due to how powerful her quirk was, everyone was scared of her, especially after a photographer took a picture of her, seemingly force choking a villain while standing amidst a burning rumble of a building. Well, what was actually happening was that she was dragging the helpless man out of collapsed debris. But that didn't stop her from getting mountains upon mountains of fans. So many fans loved her, and soon, she grew more and more distant from her high school friend. Hisashi, on the other hand, while was bitter, was also happy that she was getting the love she longed for. But then that day came. "It's a villain!" cried the panicked civilians as a 30-foot-tall gargantuan stomped through the city. Suddenly, a woman in a black cloak zoomed through the city. Debris started floating off the ground, allowing trapped civilians to escape, and were used to created temporary barriers to parry the villain's every swing. However, Inko didn't fight back, even when all the civilians were evacuated. Hisashi, only now arriving for duty, saw her fighting. But then, he saw the other heroes that were there, why weren't they helping her? Quickly, in a mad dash, the young hero ran past the crowd to assist his lover. But just then, was blocked by other heroes. "What are you doing? Let me help her," cried Hisashi in rage. "Help? Yeah right. Like Psy Storm even needs any help. She once stopped a meteor from hitting Kyoto. She's got this." The other heroes laughed. "Are you kidding me? Inko is a kind hero. She wouldn't hurt a fly. Why would they just let her fight alone? Do they not know about her personality?" thought Hisashi. Suddenly, with Inko at her limit, the villain shattered her barrier, sending her flying back several feet. Panic rung out, as even the heroes were fleeing. Where are you going? We're heroes," Hisashi called out. "That thing took out Psy Storm. We won't stand a chance," called out the hero in return. "I don't believe you," Hisashi uttered out as he downed a white fire chemical mix and ran towards the villain. "No. Don't do it. You'll get killed," the heroes called out. Just then, Hisashi froze in rage, hearing the hero's next words. "You're not Psy Storm. If her quirk couldn't do it, yours won't either." He had realized that this whole time, her fans didn't recognize her for who she was, they recognized her for her powerful quirk. It applies to today as well. Do you think Endeavor could remain Endeavor without his quirk? What about Best Genist? Or, for that fact, All Might? It was at that moment that Hisashi knew, in this world, quirks now define who you were. That day, something snapped in Hisashi. When Inko woke up, there was fire and destruction everywhere. The villain that beat her was down, lying on the ground with severe third-degree burns covering his body. And Hisashi stood amidst the flames, letting out a roar in anger. "Hisashi!" Inko called out. Hisashi, seeing her, had snapped out of his rage and ran to hug her, the same way he did years ago when she was crying alone in Yuuei. He had realized that this whole time, he was still her only true friend. Hisashi gave up his hero career after that and became a scientist, starting a quirk research project to hone his skills in chemistry, but stayed close to Inko, the two eventually getting married. However, her fans didn't learn and kept identifying her for the hero she wasn't. Eventually, Hisashi had enough. So, without telling her, he started a research on a quirk erasure drug that would permanently terminate one's quirk. That's where I came in. With no one to fund his project, I stepped in, knowing the drug can be used to defeat All Might. We had several chats, and everything I'm telling you, he told me first. But he needed a test subject to make sure the drug was a success. And take a wild guess at who that test subject was. Mother. Exactly, Hisashi injected the drug into her while she was asleep. But it didn't work as planned, rather, it worked out even better. Instead of vanishing instantly, the drug caused Inko's quirk to weaken day after day. He carefully noted everything, from her power's decrease rate to her physical conditions. There was but one final question, was the drug hereditary? No. Yes indeed my child, he had sex with Inko just to see if her offspring would be quirkless. Guess one might say, it was a success. However, he was unable to finish his true plans, as I had found out about it and had to confront him. He was planning to turn his drug into a virus and unleash a quirk-killing plague. It was the perfect drug, the effect won't be noticed until it was too late, and any child that comes after will be quirkless, the silent plague, he called it. In time, the whole world would be back to being the plain old Earth it was decades ago. I had to confront him. Think about what you're doing Hisashi. Yelled All for One. I have already. This world isn't ready for such powers yet. I'd rather live in a world where people have to work to get what they want, not be born with the means to. Hisashi replied. We haven't even begun to discover what quirk circuit truly do. A new era will soon begin, as the number of quirkless is decreasing rapidly. Do you really want to miss out on this new era? Asked All for One. Inko can uproot an entire skyscraper if she wanted to, Nana's One for All can destroy entire building with a single punch. Thank God they're both heroes, but imagine if that kind of power falls into the hands of those with evil intentions. I'd rather live in a world where such a menace is impossible. Hisashi replied, and you won't stop me. Suddenly, dark energy irradiated from All For One's body as his animosity increased. Yes, I will. All For One said, entering his battle mode. Sadly, the heroes had also caught on to Hisashi's plans and raided his lab the second I was about to strike him down. Hisashi took advantage of this moment of distraction and hit me with a surprise attack. Upon saying this, All For One took off his mask, revealing to Izuku a face that looked like melted wax, with only vaguely eyes and a mouth. This was the damage your father did to me during that surprise attack, explained All For One. But what happened after that? Asked Izuku, recovering from the shock of seeing his real face. Having my face melted was not the most pleasant of experiences, but luckily I had pain-numbing quirks to help me. Everything after that was a blur. But I remember that ultimately, I was put down by All Might while Hisashi escaped within an inch of his life. Well, almost, as he had run into the last person he wanted to run into right at the exit. Darling? Asked a worried Inko. Inko, don't tell me, Hisashi said in shock. Yes, it was me, I leaked your plans to the heroes. She explained, I can't believe you do this. Inko, I'm sorry, Hisashi said, I'm tears. You drugged me, fuck me not for love, but for your own selfish ends, why didn't you consult me? Inko cried out, her voice getting more and more upset. Inko, I'm so sorry I couldn't trust you. That revelation broke Inko's heart. For a brief moment, she had forgotten morale and in a blind rage, snapped her husband's neck with all of her leftover powers. She cried after that a lot and mourned for months. And the day she had given birth to you, I was there, at the same hospital. I could tell that she still loved her husband and regretted her actions, so I convinced her to keep you, it's what he would have wanted. And that's how you, Izuku Midoriya, came to be. All For One finished. Izuku looked into a mirror in disbelief. So this whole time, I was but a mere experiment, a step in a much bigger project, I shouldn't even be alive, Izuku muttered to himself. See? This is exactly why I haven't given you All For One yet. It's because of this reason. All For One finished by pulling out a vial of white liquid. This is the drug your father was gonna use to kill all quirks. It hasn't been made into a virus yet, so I'm saving some samples in case we need it. Izuku did not respond. While he normally would have taken great interest in the contents of that vial, he didn't. That confirms it, he's broken. All For One declared, but just then, the door opened. Izuku? Are you done your meeting? Come on, let's head back. Called out Spinner. Izuku, snapping out of his trance, looked at the group that came to visit. Toga. Spinner. Twice. Dabi. Sachi. What are you doing here? Asked Izuku. We couldn't just leave one of us behind now, can we? It's like you once said, this league is like a family. Sachi said with open arms. A family, yes. A family. Izuku thought as the amount of joy caused tears to flow out of his eyes. So, what are you waiting for? Don't leave them hanging. All For One said. Izuku smiled. Right. He said as he ran towards the group, going right past Sachi to hug Toga, who gave him a big kiss. The past doesn't define me anymore, I have a place now in this world. Chapter 28. Back at the hideout, the young greenhead was staring at his computer screen, typing away like a salaryman working overtime. He rapidly ran through all of the heroes and was trying to prescribe a counter for each of them. The advantage they have in this is that thanks to All For One, that can obtain almost any quirk necessary to deal with the heroes without losing any men. Although, the reveal of the truth still boggled his mind, making it hard for him to work. While surfing the web, searching for the best antifreeze chemicals, he came across the news that the hero headquarters had been raided. The sight of the headlines gave him a prideful grin as he read through the report. Over 30 security killed, 75 injured. To top that, 4 heroes were murdered and 1 gravely injured. I must congratulate you, Jiren. He said out loud, you really know how to pick the creme de la creme within the crowd. The door swung open behind him as he turned around to see who it was. At the doorway stood Dabi, holding a piece of paper with concern painted all over his face. Something wrong, Dabi? Asked Izuku. You should see this, now. Replied the lanky man as he handed him the paper. Reading through the lines, concern drew over Izuku's face. Assemble the league. He said in a serious tone, now. Down at the bar, the gang met up around the round table, with Kurogiri serving each of the members their favorite respective drink. Sake for Dabi, Bloody Mary for Toga, cocktail for Magni, ginger ale for Spinner, whiskey for Mr. Compress, just water for Moonfish, milk for Mustard, vodka for Muscular, gin, and tonic for Sachi, beer for Arena, tequila for the Hounds, cola for Yeung. Cider for Jack and margarita for Izuku. I don't usually call the entire league to my meetings. I know some of you love to go their own thing, using the leave as just a rest stop. Muscular, Jack and Moonfish, I'm looking at you three, while others including myself, have a secret life to mask our villain alter egos, such as Mustard, but today is different. Dobby was able to intercept an anonymous letter. I thank him for that, because should this letter get sent to its destination, it would mean the end of this league. Izuku started. The group chattered, some more concerned than others. What could it be? Asked Toga. Yeah, we can take him. Whoever they are. Muscular cut in. Izuku unfolded the letter, reading it out loud. The Yuuei. As we speak, there is a traitor among your ranks who has been leaking information to the outside. This traitor goes by the name of Mightless, as you may know, and has been leaking information to the underworld. His true identity is Izuku Midoriya, and he is the leader of the League of Villains, whom was behind both the Usage incident and the headquarters raid. The rest of the letter also revealed the quirks and appearance of each member and the location of the hideout. Just to clarify, the only reason why we're still here is thanks to Dobby. We got lucky, but there's no telling when another message could be sent. Izuku explained. Who could be behind this? Asked Magni. Isn't it obvious? Shigaraki, obviously. Replied Mr. Compress. Indeed, this is his handwriting. Confirmed Kurogiri, reading the letter himself. He must have thought that if he couldn't have the league, no one could, and planned to bring the league down himself. So what do we do? Asked Sachi. Ain't it obvious? We need to catch the traitor before he falls into the hands of the authorities. Should he get detained, he'll spill everything. Answered Izuku. But how will we track him down though? Unlike last time, we don't have nearly enough men to do the job. Nomus would only attract heroes, and we can't forget that he can kill any of us with just a touch. Asked Irina. Remember, we still have a lead. We may not be on good terms currently, but he's our only lead. Said Izuku. Some people in the room, such as Spinner and Toga, shook with excitement. You don't mean? Yes, Spinner, we must contact Stain. The news about the attack at the hero headquarters spread like wildfire. It seemed as though this year, the sports festival in its entirety was getting buried by much bigger incidents. First was Endeavor, confessing to his crimes, followed by the raid on the headquarters. One may say that the heroes took two major blows that day. Articles such as "Are heroes worth it?" and "Can they be trusted?" became hot topics online and on the news. People started to lose trust in the people they once admired. And from the amount of backlash generated from these recent incidents, it was rumored that Yuuei's student count dropped by 20%. But the biggest impact on society these recent attacks had was its spread to the underground. Hahaha. Did you hear? Apparently Endeavor cried like a bitch during the sports festivals. A random thug laughed in a random bar. I know, right? I always knew these heroes were pussies. Another one laughed back. At the corner of the bar, a lone hero killer sat silently, taking in all of this new information. Letting out an annoyed groan, he emptied an entire bottle of brandy in one gulp. Suddenly, a man adorned in a black coat, with Kevlar vest with a skull that has a hole on the forehead and wearing a red beans and a face mask with the bottom jaw of a skeleton drawn on, approached the drinker. I suppose you're Stain, the hero killer. Said the man. And what if I was? Asked Stain. My name is Sachiko Tsukiyama, I am a representative of the League of Villains, our boss, Mightless, would like to have a word with you. Sachi answered formally. Stain reached slowly for his knife. And what if I won't cooperate? He asked. I beg your pardon? Sachi asked politely, like how Kurogiri instructed him to. You see, I have a certain grudge to settle with your boss. I won't give in to his demand so easily, so tell me, what are you gonna do if I refuse? Asked Stain. I'm begging you, please just come with me quietly and no harm will be done. Sachi pleaded. Seeing how he had nothing better to do, he got off his seat, following Sachi outside, where Kurogiri pulled over in a limousine, opening the door for him. Stain cautiously entered, as next to him was a woman, black long hair, wearing a long black dress. Hello Stain, my name is Irina von Tescalorius, I will be your escort. She replied. If this is all a setup to make your organization look more professional than it is, cut it. I prefer if my escorts weren't faking it. I despise fakes more than anything. Stain said aggressively, how did you get your hands on this limousine anyway? Our many heists have put our budget in the millions, we have money to spare. Of course, it isn't all used on luxury items, but it's nice to enjoy ourselves, won't you agree? Champagne. Irina explained, offering him a glass, which he declined. As the car pulled over to the bar, Stain's suspicions were already confirmed, as the quality simply didn't add up. From a fancy limo to a rundown bar. Stain was already starting to lose his trust towards these guys. Entering the building, he was met with a cozy-looking bar, where at the bar table sat the boss of the establishment. Hello Stain, I've been expecting you. Said Izuku in a calm and polite tone. Stain looked around. At the door entrance stood two giant beasts beyond his comprehension. Any other normal human beings were nowhere to be found. I was expecting a bigger crowd, commented the hero killer. Sorry about that, I would have brought out more people, but I wanted to discuss more personal subjects. Izuku replied, but first, I would like to ask you about the whereabouts of a former subordinate of mine, one that goes by the name Tamura Shigaraki. Stain sat down on a chair next to him, surveying the room to make sure this wasn't a trap. For a brief moment, he could have swore he saw a lizard slip by. Meanwhile, near the back room, Twice and Dobby had to pin down Spinner, who was having a fanbogasm. Let me go. I have to see him. Stain. Please sign my autograph. Spinner yelled with a muffled scream as the two villains had to hold his mouth shut so that Stain doesn't hear. They had specific instructions to stay hidden, as their presence coupled with their usual personalities would set off the serious mood Izuku had set up. It wasn't like he hadn't it easy either, he had to receive formality training from Kurogiri and had been rehearsing for hours prior to the meeting. If you want to know where Shigaraki is, I can safely say that I'm not sure, he had left just yesterday. Although, with his name now on the wanted list, I doubt he could have made that much distance by in one day. Stain answered. Izuku turned to Kurogiri. Send a Nomus and place them on the outskirts of Hosu, make sure Shigaraki doesn't escape the city. Ordered Izuku. Right away young master. Kurogiri replied as he vanished into a portal. Turning back to Stain, he took a sip of his margarita, then cleared his throat with a formality that matched that of a gentleman. Very well, while my underling takes care of Shigaraki, I would like to discuss about something with you. Do you have the time for that, or does this meeting interfere with your agenda? Asked Izuku in a polite tone. Drop the formality, it's not the number of sentences you can overcomplicate that makes you not your organization more professional looking. Stain ranted. Fine, straight to the point then, what is your view on the heroes of today's society? Asked Izuku. Stain's eyebrows raised in suspicion. What does that got to do with anything? Asked Stain. As cautious as ever, typical for someone like you. Fine, might as well spray the main subject now than never, we would like you among our ranks, Stain. Izuku said. Stain sighed in disappointment. No deal. He said bluntly, before getting up. However, the second he got up, the two beasts blocked the door in an aggressive manner. It's quite rude to deny someone suggestion without a clear reason, Stain. Indulge me, why don't you want to join? Asked Izuku, still with a dark malicious smile on his face. I'm the man who will remind the world what heroes really are and show them that the heroes they have been cheering for all these years were mere imposters who have plagued the hero world. You bunch are but another mafia gang, hating heroes because they are heroes and doing everything for money, not justice. I'm not just some thug, and frankly I feel insulted that you thought of me this way. Stain answered. Izuku's smile dropped. We are more than just a gang of common thugs, Stain, we fight for the same reason as you, for a better world. Heroes are currently what's wrong with this world, so with you working with us, we will have a fighting chance to stop them. Izuku exclaimed. Suddenly, a throwing knife came flying towards Izuku, who dodged it swiftly as it split the dartboard behind him in half. Do you want to know the real reason why I won't join you guys? You lack conviction. Sure, you may claim to want to defeat the heroes, but I bet you that the second you lose to one, you'll quit the job. Conviction is what gets everything done in this world. Without it, people will just wither away and die. Defeat the heroes. Create a better world. You'd have better things to do in that case, other than to rent limousines and drink fancy drinks. Now good day sir. Stain said menacingly, trying to push the Nomus out of the way. Izuku stood silently as rage quelled up inside him. He expected Stain to throw everything at him, but no one doubts his conviction. Stain didn't know this, he was unaware of Izuku's sheer determination and drive to never give up. Suddenly, as Kurogiri walked back inside, he had noticed Izuku's rage-filled aura, reminiscent of Shigaraki. Do you want to talk about conviction? Asked Izuku. Stain suddenly felt a murderous aura wrap around Izuku. Reaching for his knife, he was ready and on the attack. Suddenly, his eyes widened with shock, along with Kurogiri's as blood splattered onto the counter. Izuku had just cut off his own arm. Take this as proof that I would do anything to accomplish my goal. Izuku said, not even taking notice to the fact that he was missing an arm. Young master. What have you done? Quickly, I must stop the bleeding. Kurogiri yelled like a panicking father as he quickly reached for the first aid kit under the counter. I don't know much about conviction, Stain, but I want to let you know that I will stop at nothing to get what I want. Izuku said with a hint of anger, unchanged by the amount of pain he was hiding. I can cut off my other arm too if you want, whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm not joking around about this. Stain stood speechless. He wasn't even the one Izuku cut, yet he felt as if he was just impaled 1,000 times. Never had he seen such conviction and determination coming from the same kid he fought a year ago, no less. Suddenly, laughter was heard coming from the hero killer, followed by clapping. "I like it, kid, I must admit, I wasn't expecting such conviction coming from you." Stain laughed. "I misjudged you, you were way more serious than I thought. Perhaps I could stick around for a bit." "Then welcome aboard, hero killer." Izuku answered, reaching out for a handshake. "Glad to be of service," replied Stain, shaking his hand. "I should get going now." As the hero killer left the building, Izuku grabbed his severed arm. "Kurajiri." He called out to the panicked bartender, "Warp me to sensei, I need to get this arm reattached." "Right away, young master," he replied, opening the portal. The break was over and everyone was back to class. Izuku walked into class where the students were chattering about how they were seen on their way to school. Apparently, many people had congratulated each of them for their hard work at the sports festival. He didn't mind much, but he still chatted with a few of his classmates. He wanted to be invested, but all he could think of was the next big plan. Recapturing Shigaraki. According to the intel group, they have confirmed that Shigaraki was hiding somewhere in Hosu City, where Stain just so happens to currently operate. The plan is to have Stain stun the man by licking his blood so that they can bring the body back. The tricky part was to find a way to smoke them out. Just then, Aizawa started talking. "Today, you will be coming up with your hero aliases," Aizawa announced. The class, who were initially panicking towards the upcoming exams, cheered at the news. "In the meantime, concerning the pro hero draft picks I mentioned the other day. It's based on who the pros think will be able to join the workforce after just 2 or 3 years of experience. So one could say it's their way of to show interest in your future," Aizawa continued. Izuku, not paying attention to anything he had originally said, suddenly remembered what he had read on the school plans. The hero internship was starting soon. He cursed lightly, knowing that that would mean that there was now a possibility for heroes to intervene in their work. This forced him deeper into concentration, now having to figure out how to cover up the fact that he wasn't with his pro hero. "Here are the complete draft pick numbers," Aizawa presented onto the board. The green-haired boy only caught a glimpse at the board, yet he was still blown away. He had over 3,000 picks, while Todoroki had over 4,000. Normally, the numbers would be more spread out, but it seems as though the majority of the spotlight was stolen by 2 students. Aizawa said. "Wow, number 1 over there didn't even get on the board," commented Mineta. "Shut up, you fuck," Katsuki yelled from the back. "The only one by default and had to be chained to the podium, it's no wonder no one would have selected him," said Shiro. Meanwhile, with Izuku, his plan was finally coming together. The number of heroes that picked him was just what he needed for him to formulate the perfect plan to capture Shigaraki. With the amount of heroes he could pick from, he could easily cover up their murder by pinning it on Stain, plus, he could also claim that his hero also pursued Shigaraki, since he is also on the wanted list. While Izuku went back to mutter mode, all the other students were already picking their hero aliases. From cute and clever names like Uravity or Froppy, to cool names like Red Riot, or even plain stupid names like I Can't Stop Twinkling. It seemed as though the students that once knew they had long strides to take before becoming real heroes dropped all modesty, like a teenager already choosing their first baby's name without the confirmation that she would even have a first baby. Little did even Izuku know, a similar conversation was unfolding back at the hideout. "Has anyone noticed that a few of us here have no villain aliases?" asked Mustard. "Now that you mention it, yeah, our newer recruits like Sachi, Jack and Young don't have any nicknames, nor do Dabi and Toga," responded Mr. Compress. Dabi, overhearing their conversation, walked to their table. "And why should we have an alias, may I ask?" asked Dabi. Spinner, upon hearing this, picked up Dabi by the shoulder and shook him around. "Listen, Dabi. An alias is one of the fundamental steps of being a villain. No alias, no one's gonna take you seriously," Spinner called out. "Not to mention, it's way better when people cry run. Run. It's dull, master. Rather than run. Run. It's arena." Irina cut in, dropping into the conversation. "I dunno, sounds pretty stupid," Dabi responded. "Hey. If aliases are stupid, why does Stain have one then?" Spinner called out, clearly offended by Dabi's remark. The stitched-up man tilted his head in confusion. "Stain has an alias?" The room went silent. "What? Stain wasn't his real name?" Dabi asked, causing the room to burst into laughter. "Ha. You're right, you know Dabi a real riot." Toga laughed. "Hey. It's not like you knew either," Dabi replied, annoyed. "Of course I knew. Everyone here knows that Stain isn't his real name, you dumbus. What's his last name then?" "Carpet." Spinner laughed, not even regretting the fact that he unintentionally insulted his idol. "Hey. I know." Toga snapped her fingers, "Let's make our own aliases." Everyone besides Dabi agreed, and most of the mentioned, non-A-list members dropped in. "I'll start," Sachi called out, striking a pose, Death Spike. "Sinister, I love it," Irina replied. "Killer cutie," Toga called out with enthusiasm afterwards. "The Huntress," Yeon cut in, also winning some applause. "Hannibal," Jack grunted, referring to his favorite novel and movie. "Silence of the Lambs." Eventually, even Dabi got into it. "The Wicker Man," he answered. It seemed as though with the festive and cheerful spirit of his subordinates, Izuku felt good vibes as it was his turn to present his alias. He held up his board, revealing it to the classroom. "I really wish Toga isn't here for this," the thought as he revealed his nickname. Small Might. Chapter 29. Izuku banged his head on the desk over and over, moaning in embarrassment. Small Might. Small Might, what was I thinking? I should have just went with Deku or something. Thank God I declined at the last second, but God. Was that embarrassing? He thought as most of the students were discussing with which pro hero they want to go with. "I'm going with Montana Lady," Mineta announced to his classmates. "Of course you would," Ejiro replied, fully expecting it. Meanwhile, Aizawa passed along the personalized list of those who got drafted, leaving both Izuku and Todoroki with a stack of papers to read through. Skimming through the list, the young undercover villain saw several heroes that were on his target list in the past. Big Band, Beowulf, Beetleman, Caviar, the list went on. "Hold the phone, All Might's agency drafted you," some of the students called out as Izuku turned to Todoroki. "Yeah, I know it's odd, especially since he's been teaching us here in Yuuei, but this is clearly his name, here on the list," the ice-haired student pointed out. Hearing this, Izuku lifted an eyebrow in suspicion. "I recall All Might teaching here for unbeknownst reasons, but this he is now also accepting interns. How peculiar," the boy thought. "So, which hero are you going for?" asked Ichako, appearing behind him, startling him. The green-haired teen jerked to his left, facing Ichako. "I dunno yet, there's just too many to choose from," Izuku replied. "Well, I'm going for the Gunhead agency," she replied. "Gunhead? You mean that tough-as-nails scrapper? Why him? I would have expected you to go for 13 or something," Izuku asked. "Yeah, but in the end, my fight with Bakugo got me thinking, getting stronger allows for more opportunities. And just doing things the same old way is kind of limiting, or something," she said cheerfully, while striking a pose. "Ah yes, I see," Izuku mumbled as he was helplessly locked in another, never-ending conversation with her. As the class ended, while every student flooded out of the classroom, All Might came dashing in front of the door right as Todoroki was heading out, in a peculiar pose as well. "Hello there, young Todoroki," All Might said in his usual valiant tone. "All Might? Why are you here?" Todoroki asked, in such a peculiar pose, no less. "It's about your dad," All Might said in a much more serious tone, making Todoroki shudder. "Meet me at my office, we have some matters to discuss." At All Might's office. Todoroki entered his office, noticing All Might sitting on a black leather sofa that barely fit him, gesturing him to sit on the couch right across him. Sitting down, All Might poured him a cup of green tea. "Listen, young Todoroki, I've been meaning to ask you, concerning your father, Endeavor, how is he doing recently?" asked All Might. Todoroki looked surprised. What do you mean?" asked the young student. "Your dad's not doing well, young Todoroki. His rank dropped into the 3 digits ever since he confessed to have abused both his wife and kids. He was hit with a 2-month suspension of his license and a 10,000,000 yen fine to his agency. I tried talking to him, asking if he was fine or not, but he refused to talk back." All Might explained, "I have no other choice but to ask you. He is doing everything he can to rebrand and clear his name, but besides that, he's doing fine." Todoroki answered, "He should be able to reclaim his spot in the top 10 soon enough." All Might shook his head. "One cannot clear his name easily, young Todoroki. The top 10 is a slippery slope, and even the slightest mess up could send your rank tumbling down." "Well, most people believe I have nothing to do with this. I believe this is also my fault," All Might replied. "Why is that?" asked Todoroki. "Endeavor and I are close friends, Todoroki. If there was anyone who would have known he was an abusive father and husband, it would be me. The fact that I was too naive to think he would do such a thing despite it clearly being written all over him means I am just as guilty as he was. I want to make up for that, hence why I drafted you," All Might answered. "I was wondering that, although there was something that puzzled me. Why did you suddenly decide to teach at Yuuei? The press had been all over that news," Todoroki asked. "That's the other reason why I have called you here, young Todoroki." All Might explained, "My quirk, One for All, is a very powerful quirk, one that allows me to stockpile power and unleash it in bursts." "Why is it called One for All then? Shouldn't it be just power stocking or something?" asked Todoroki. "That's where you're wrong," You see, this quirk isn't originally mine, it was given to me. All Might explained. Todoroki sat there speechless. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. You see, prior to all of this, I was quirkless. This quirk was given to me by Nanashimura, the #1 hero of the last generation. It was a quirk that can be passed down from people to people, becoming stronger and stronger with each successor. All Might explained. The young student felt his heart sink. He was in awe, in shock, biting his lips till he could taste blood just to make sure he wasn't dreaming, and suddenly, he saw him, like a balloon, deflate into a withered skeleton of a man. But I can feel my time slowly withering away, it won't be long now, I give myself, what? 4-5 more months. And that's only if I don't fight anyone. This is why I came to teach at Yuuei, so that I can find the next successor. He explained. Clutching the sofa, Todoroki was trying to hold back his tears, trying to not let this reveal ruin his image of his hero. No, you can't go, not yet. All Might. I admired you my entire life. I wanted to be just like you. You inspired me, returned me the hope my father had taken from me. You can't, Todoroki uttered on the verge of tears. I understand your pain, young Todoroki. But I assure you, quirk or without quirk, I will always be All Might. All Might continued. But why? Why tell me this? Asked Todoroki. Because I want you to be the next successor to One for All. All Might answered. Todoroki froze. What? All Might took a sip of his tea. You always believed in me, yet I wasn't ever there to help you. Even when you finally met me, I couldn't decipher that you had lived a tortured life. I am the symbol of peace, yet I couldn't even help a single boy that was screaming help me. Deep inside him. How can I call myself a hero after that? I may not be around for long, so I would like you to take my quirk so that I may repay you for all those years you suffered because of my negligence. Upon hearing this, Todoroki couldn't help but smile, as though all those calls for help have finally been answered. I'll think about it, just not now. He answered as he got up and walked towards the exit. Oh, and All Might. Yes, young Todoroki? Asked All Might. See you at the internship. Outside of All Might's office, however, unbeknownst to both of them, Izuku eavesdropped, and every word that came out of All Might's mouth just made him want to brutally murder the two right there and then. When he heard Todoroki head towards the door, Izuku had to bite his own lips in order to calm down. Regret not helping him, huh? Wow. How nice of you. It's not like you nearly drove a quirkless kid to suicide, you cunt. He thought to himself as he headed back to the hideout. As he entered the bar, he met face to face with Stain and Spinner, who seemed to be having some sort of conversation, but upon getting closer, he saw Stain's annoyed face. Hey here, Mightless, now that you're here, can you get this guy off of me? He's really getting on my nerves. Stain said, pointing at Spinner, who was screaming fanboy gibberish. Alright then, hey Spinner, stop jacking off to your idol and get over here, we have only 2 days to pull off this plan, and I don't want your obsession over Stain to get in the way, got it? Izuku said sternly. But boss. This is Stain. The Stain. Spinner pleaded. Get over here. Izuku yelled, losing his temper, while punching through a table, making Spinner and Kurogiri shudder. Stain on the other hand, laughed. Looks like someone had a shitty day. Stain replied, handing his boss a pint of beer, which Izuku gulped down in one shot. Izuku then proceeded to flop on the counter, letting out an annoyed groan, and asking the bartender for another shot. You're gonna bust a liver if you keep drinking like that. Kurogiri commented in a worried tone. I don't care, I had a shitty day, and the only cure is alcohol. Izuku grunted like a man during his midlife crisis. Suddenly, he felt 2 smooth dainty hands on his back. Will a back rub do? Asked a familiar female voice, as Izuku's lips curved upwards. Toga, you always know how to cheer me up in days like these. He said, not even looking back. The blondie smiled as she leaned on his back, as her hands made their way down his pants. As Izuku felt shivers down his spine, he smiled in anticipation, as Stain looked at the two, disgusted. Suddenly, Dabi came bursting through the door once again. We tracked down Shigaraki. Dabi shouted. Upon hearing this, Izuku immediately got up, causing Toga to stare angrily at Dabi for stopping her from getting intimate with her lover. The young boss walked up to Dabi, asking for the maps of Hosu, all the while calling Jiren on the phone. Hey there Jiren. How's it going? Izuku greeted. Not bad Mightless, not bad at all. Our bank's looking pretty saturated right now, in fact, I think we can use this money to upgrade our members, you know. Give them some equipment to complement their quirks. Asked Jiren. Sounds good, what do you have to offer? The young boss asked back while heading to the basement to activate the Hunter Nomus. Give me 2 days, and I can provide Dobby some gas gauntlets, which emits gas to amplify his fire attacks, Spinner with an arsenal of swords and knives, Magni with a lighter, more combat-purposed magnet, Mustard with a newly upgraded gas mask that can also amplify his sleeping gas, and a blood-sucking needle pack for Toga," replied the sleazy salesman. "May I include an extra equipment for Toga?" asked Izuku. "Sure thing. What would you like for me to provide the girl?" asked Jiren. "Give that bitch a cannon," Izuku said as the tanks drained, revealing the Nomu's lifeless bodies. Bitches love cannons. 2 days passed as the internship had begun, with the students wishing good luck to each other. Izuku waved goodbye at his classmates but was still legitimately pissed off at one specific classmate, excluding Kitsuki, of course. Todoroki, which he started to resent for getting the attention he deserved and was worried about another one. Iida. Not because he knew that Iida might get himself killed, trying to take down the hero killer alone, but rather because he knew where Stain was, somehow, and might interfere in their plans of capturing Shigaraki. The boy himself, he had made sure he selected a hero that usually operates in Hosu. The hero he went by the name Bat Dude. His quirk, Bat, gave him all the abilities of a bat. Before meeting the hero at his agency however, he took a detour, climbing up to the roof of a vacant building, where this squad appeared through Kurogiri's portal. "Have the Nomus been deployed here?" asked Izuku. "Yup, and Stain has already been deployed," answered Kurogiri. "And I suppose you have eyes on him 24/7? asked Izuku. "Of course, we have slipped a webcam and scarf, anything he does, we can see, this will make sure he doesn't get sidetracked killing heroes," Kurogiri explained. "Any signs of Shigaraki yet?" asked Izuku. "None yet, but rest assured, with the amount of Nomus we have in a 10-mile radius, he isn't going anywhere, we just need to slowly close this metaphorical circle, and eventually, he will hit a border," explained the dark bartender. "Good, then I must get going," Izuku said, jumping off the building, using his air quirk to cushion the fall. Izuku made his way to the agency. In the meantime, the Nomus were perched in hidden areas, with the order to burst out and attack the second they see Shigaraki. Meanwhile, Stain, Toga, Sachi and Arena patrolled the streets. Spinner, Mustard, Mr. Compress and Magni stayed at a nearby inn, waiting for the time to come when Shigaraki is found. It was a normal day for some, but for others, the hunt has begun. Right off the bat, Bat Dude pissed him off to no end. He keeps on ranting about his tragic backstory, where during one night, his parents were nearly killed by a common thug, but survived. That experience left him scarred, so he fought crime using the millions of dollars from his parents' fortune. He didn't know what made him more angry, the fact that he rants about being a tortured man, despite owning $1 million mansion, his lackluster reason to become a hero, the millions of dollars he's wasting on decorating his office, or the fact that all of his sidekicks were orphans and were forced to fight in their underwear with a ridiculous-looking eye mask. Not that he had learned much anyways, as all he did was all the dirty work, while Bat Dude took all the credit. The sheer arrogance radiating from the guy made Izuku want to slit his throat in his sleep. Before you knew it, day 1 ended and there was still no sign of Shigaraki. Not wanting to stick around, he wandered off, heading to the alleyway to assist in the hunt. Now, if I was covered in hands, where would I hide? Izuku said to himself. He first called his team, seeing if they can track down the escapee. No luck, it seemed as though Shigaraki is just that good at hiding. The next day rolled around and it was the same old routine. Fight some thugs, Bat Dude takes all the credit, fight some dudes, Bat Dude takes all the credit. It drove him mad. Eventually, Izuku had enough. On the second day, while Bat Dude was signing autographs and ditched him while on patrol to go hang out with some girls, Izuku wandered off, heading out of the Nomus barrier to a nearby cafe. He needed a drink. However, when entering the cafe, things looked weird. One thing, it was beyond dusty, like no one cleaned the place for years. Secondly, besides the barista, there was no one there. Not questioning anything, he walked up to the barista, asking for a smoothie. "That will be 400 yen," answered the barista. Suddenly, as Izuku was reaching out to hand him the money, the barista grabbed him by the wrist, leaving only one pinky off his wrist. Looking up in shock, he recognized the barista. Tamura Shigaraki. Shigaraki? But how? How did you manage to slip past the net I made? Asked Izuku in shock. So you did try and surround me, figures. But I guess you never took into account the fact that I can also disguise myself. Shigaraki smiled. Bastard, so this is where you've been hiding? Izuku asked, trying to break free. Nah, this was just a temporary base I set up after killing everyone here. The ex-villain replied. That explains all the dust. Izuku grunted, so what now? What will you do to me? Kill me? Shigaraki gave him an evil grin. Not quite yet, first, how about we pay Mom a visit? Shigaraki asked with glee. Izuku trembled. No. Yes. Shigaraki laughed back, cry. Despair. I wanted to see you like this for so long. Cry. Cry. Cr. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard as a bullet came flying in the room, separating the two. Izuku, confused, scouted around, but saw no one. Just then, he heard another loud bang as another bullet flew in, aiming right at Shigaraki, who only narrowly avoided it, grazing his shoulder. Izuku got a better view of where the bullet came from. Judging from the trajectory, there could only be one place where that shot came from. The high ground. Just then, he saw a faint just distinct silhouette in the abandoned building across the shop and smiled. It was Toga. Bitches love cannons. Toga yelled out, firing another round, this one hitting Shigaraki in the calf as he tried to run. Izuku, seeing this, called all of his team to his location. Spinner's group, upon getting the message, shot out of their rooms in excitement. Stain, wiping the blood off his blade, made his way to where Shigaraki was found, disposing of the body of the mangled corpse that was once Bat-Dude in the trash. Sudden loud explosions rang out as the Nomus were going berserk, a protocol programmed in their brain once Shigaraki was found, with the goal of attracting all the heroes to them, instead of towards Shigaraki. While the rest of the league were on their way, Toga got off her perch, running to regroup with Izuku, while Shigaraki limped his way to the exit. Reaching the cafe, she leaped into Izuku's arms. "Oh Izuku-kun, I was so worried," Toga muttered. "Thank you, Toga, but how did you find me?" asked Izuku. "I had to make sure you were doing okay after seeing how badly Bat-Dude exploited you. I was gonna follow you to the cafe until Shigaraki grabbed you. I couldn't just run in as he would use you as hostage," she explained. "Good thing I gave you that cannon." Izuku smiled. "Yeah, and thank you, by the way," she said, clutching her newly bought rifle, painted pink with the words "Bitches love cannons" printed on it. "Now let's give chase. Shigaraki is getting away," she said, pointing to their target who was driving away on his motorcycle. "Right," Izuku said, creating a wind board below them and charging after their prey. Shigaraki, however, had an idea. Run into the heart of the action where he saw fire was coming from and lure the villains into the heroes that will no doubt be there. Just then, bullets came flying in as Izuku and Toga were dead on his tracks. The man swerved left and right, dodging bullets and wind blades alike as he hurried down the road. Up ahead, however, there appeared to be a roadblock. A toppled-over delivery truck with Mustard, Spinner, Mr. Compress and Magni were waiting. "We got him," Mr. Compress said, throwing a bunch of marbles, which turned into cars, scrap metal and pieces of the road at Shigaraki, as Magni tried to slow down the motorcycle with his magnetism. Shigaraki, however, seeing how Izuku was gaining on him, veered sideways as a wind blade missed him and came flying at the group. Magni was forced to unmagnetize Shigaraki's vehicle to use the debris compress through his shield. Just then, Shigaraki used a temporary wall as ramp, ramping over the blockade right as it was collapsing and right as Izuku's wind board dispelled. "Curses, he got away," Izuku grunted. "He won't get far," Spinner said nonchalantly. "Stain is up ahead." Stain was made aware that Shigaraki was closing in near him. He was waiting patiently at an alleyway, waiting for him to pass by. Just then, he felt something incoming and prepped his blade. Recipro. Before the attacker could finish, Stain immediately cut him down. "You're not Shigaraki," commented Stain, looking at the guy he cut down. The kid got back up, looking more pissed than ever. The man in a scarf red as blood, armed to the teeth with blades. "You must be Stain the hero killer, right?" he said, angrily. "I've been pursuing you, I didn't expect to meet you so soon, I am." Stain pointed his blade right at him. "I can see it in your eyes, you are out for revenge, aren't you?" Stain commented, "Watch your mouth, kid, or your age won't be enough to save you." The kid got back up. "Save me? Do you even consider me a threat? Listen up, you criminal." He clenched his teeth. "I am the younger brother of a hero you attacked, the brother of an amazing hero among other heroes. I have come to you in my brother's stead. Inherit my mantle." Tenya, a memory flashed by him. "I am Ingenium, the hero that will stop you," Iida exclaimed. "Is that so?" asked Stain. "Then you will die." Chapter 30. "You tried and tried and tried, but in the end, a small fry remains a small fry," Stain said, standing over Iida's paralyzed body, "just like your poser of a brother." The downed student tried to move, but couldn't even lift a finger due to Stain's quirk. "Shut up, you bastard." Iida grunted angrily with clenched teeth. "My brother was a great hero, one who inspired my dreams. You have no rights to badmouth him. You murderer. You." Iida's rage was cut off by sudden laughter. I don't know what's funnier, the fact that you thought you could beat me, or that your brother would be proud of you for killing me, should you succeed." Stain laughed. "Even if you managed to kill me, your brother wouldn't magically heal, boy. You didn't think ahead, instead, your shallow mind thought that murder was the first and final solution." Iida was silenced. He couldn't think of any replies. Stain was right, what was he thinking? That is why you fail as a hero. Stain said, raising his sword, and also. Suddenly, Stain pulled out a throwing knife and turned a full 180, throwing it at an upcoming motorcycle, hitting the front tires and sending the driver crashing over the two. Did you really think you could lose us by hiding in the alleyways, Shigaraki? Stain finished, turning his attention to his initial target. Iida, staring at this, looked awfully confused. Wait, Shigaraki, that villain from the USJ attack. Why is he here? And why are you after him? Asked Iida, in confusion. My mission is to capture this man, alive, and bring him to the boss, Mightless. You have nothing to do in our plans, so consider yourself lucky and take my words to mind. I won't be so merciful the next time we meet. Stain said, walking towards Shigaraki, who was writhing in pain. Iida, on the other hand, watched helplessly as Stain slowly walked towards his wounded prey, not even trying to make things quick, rather, just watching the poor man struggle to get back up from the fall he took. Damn it all. I was so close. I was so close. Shigaraki uttered as Stain inched ever so closer, with a devilish smile drawn on his face. You know, you always annoyed me, you brat. You did nothing but complain and complain when you were under my care. I tried to be nice for once, and look where that got me. Stain, drawing his blade, should I have known you were such a spoiled brat, I would have just let you die. Suddenly, movement returned to Iida's body. The quirk's effects wore off. However, while getting up, he was faced with a dilemma. Should he save Shigaraki? On one hand, he was a villain, one that had killed several people, a menace to society. Yet on the other hand, he couldn't just stand there and watch as someone is helplessly taken away. Just then, what Izuku said prior to the sports festival came back to him. Some villain have been pushed over the edge by society, they deserve better. I wish to give them a second chance, because in the end, we are all human, and have at some point cried, please, help me. So don't look down on villains, even they need saving. But those words coming back to him, Iida was starting to understand what Izuku was talking about and what choice he would have made should he be in this situation. His instincts took a full 180 as well. Words spoken by his brother came back to him as well and pushed him to do the right thing. You should never turn your back on a man who needs help, no matter who they are. With that, Iida came charging in once more and delivered a lightning-fast kick to Stain's back, causing him to cough out blood. The hero killer looked back at his attacker, eyes red with rage, and swung back at him, but missed as he ducked under the sword and ran past the killer, grabbing his downed victim and making a run for it. You bastard. Stain coughed as he turned to Iida, confused as though why he was running to a dead end. Seeing the upcoming wall, Iida started to see clear flashes of his past, back when he struggled to turn using his quirk. He had been training for months on end, preparing for such a moment. Suddenly, to Stain's surprise, Iida hopped into the air, and as soon as his feet touched the brick wall, he used his quirk to the max. Engine full power. Recipro burst. Iida's exhaust pipes went from shaking uncontrollably from the amount of power it was outputting to bursting out flames, rocketing Iida up the wall, still carrying Shigaraki over his shoulders. No way. Stain shouted as he tried to pursue the two by jumping from wall to wall, but was unable to catch Iida, whose exhaust pipes were now red from overusage. Just then, before Iida could make it over the wall with Shigaraki, a figure descended upon the two. A young teen with a grey jacket and a face mask with a frown on it came soaring from the skies, sending the two tumbling back down. Iida, struggling to get back up, looked back at the attacker. Lightless Iida grunted, facing his new foe. Ah, boss, it was about time you showed up. Stain said with a smile. Of course, I had to assist a colleague in the capture of our league's traitor, replied the young boss. Iida trembled in fear at the sight of the duo. Facing off against the hero killer was bad enough, but now, he also had to deal with the supposed leader of the League of Villains. Hand over Shigaraki, young man, and no one gets hurt. Mightless said, intentionally not pronouncing his name to arouse suspicion. Iida backed up against the wall, terrified. He had never felt so much fear in his life. Suddenly, he felt the man on his shoulders waking up as he looked at the dude with bloodshot eyes. You want me? Come and get me. He said in a raspy voice, causing Iida to drop him. Mightless grinned. Challenge accepted then. Mightless said as he struck a fighting pose before a sword swung in front of him, stopping him from moving forward. No, this kid attacked me first and nearly escaped with the target. I have never felt so insulted in my life, so stay out of this, I'm taking them both on. Stain said with an intimidating tone. Mightless smiled under his mask. Very well then, suit yourself. Mightless said, walking away, just be sure to bring back Shigaraki alive. With that, Izuku called off all pursuers, stating, leave it to Stain. And withdrew, disappearing into a black misty portal. While walking back to the portal, he was confronted by Kurogiri on a rooftop. "Why did you call off the mission?" asked Kurogiri. "You had the man in your clutches." Izuku let out an unsatisfied sigh. "You have no idea what working with Stain is like. The man thinks too highly of himself and constantly disobeys orders, such as the order to not attract attention by killing heroes, though I am grateful for who he did kill. The problem is that he has yet to suffer defeat, so he sees us as below him, despite clearly joining our ranks. Should he succeed, we get Shigaraki back. Should he fail, then he'll learn what happens when orders are disobeyed. This is his test, and I'm the examiner," Izuku explained. "But what about Shigaraki? Wouldn't he elude us once more and get taken under custody?" asked Kurogiri. "We'll just have to retrieve him then before that happens. Shigaraki and Iida are strong, but they won't come out unscathed. Once they defeat Stain, if they defeat Stain, we will come in and clean up, and Stain. He's on his own at that point," he replied, looking down the rooftop to see the fight unfold. The duo took up a defensive stance, whereas Stain drew his sword, twirling it as he swung at the two. Knowing that Shigaraki can disintegrate things with his hand, he aimed for Iida first, who kicked the sword out of his hand. Shigaraki then jumped in reaching for his throat. But Stain didn't try to stop it. Instead, Iida grabbed him by the wrist, stopping him from disintegrating Stain, knowing that that was his ability from memory. "Stop. You can't kill him. It isn't right," Iida exclaimed. "Don't tell me what to do," Shigaraki yelled back. The handyman was suddenly kicked in the stomach by Stain's spiked boots, sending flying into a wall. Iida swung his leg at him, but missed, as Stain ducked, then swept Iida's other leg, causing him to fall. He drew a thick combat knife to stab Iida while he was down, but the student was able to pick up the sword he knocked off from Stain and block the knife. Shigaraki came running back, barely grazing Stain's face with his hand. But the hero killer was fast enough to grab Shigaraki by the wrist and twist it, pinning Shigaraki to the ground. But by then, Iida picked himself off the ground and kicked Stain off of the villain, sending him flying in midair. The now airborne hero killer was able to land on his 2 feet, brushing off some of the blood he spilled while fighting. Not bad at all." Stain smiled, but it won't be enough. Iida turned to his one-time partner. "Got any plans?" he asked. "Shit, I was hoping you'd have one," Shigaraki answered back as Stain once more lunged at them, knives and tongue hanging out. Just then, Iida remembered what his quirk can do, and an idea came to mind. "Shigaraki. I need you to distract him so that I can get in a hit," Iida exclaimed as he backed up. "Don't order me around, brat," Shigaraki answered, reluctantly obeying. As Stain tried aiming for the one that was getting away, Shigaraki placed his 5 fingers on a nearby pipe, causing it to burst out air, blinding Stain. But he celebrated too early, as the hero killer managed to sneak in a hit and stab him in the sides. Blood gushed out of the wound as the injured man backed up in shock. Stain then proceeded to kick in the injury, causing him to yell out in pain. But just as Shigaraki bent over, Stain kneed him in the face, causing blood to squirt out of his nose. The blood-ridden convict swung his hand at him once more, but his lack of technique was showing, as Stain read him like an open book, grabbing him by the wrist and throwing him over the shoulder. The villain slammed into the pavement, forming a small crater as the shock coursed through his entire body, making him gasp in pain. "Any last words?" asked Stain, holding his knife to the downed villain's neck. Just then, he ducked, dodging a kick from Iida, who came flying in at nearly the speed of sound. How Iida uttered. "Did you really think I lack so much experience that I would turn my back on my enemies?" asked Stain, catching Iida by the back collar and throwing him against a building, skidding him across the wall as he fell 4 feet away. As Iida struggled to get back up, Stain knocked him back down with throwing knives, jamming them into his shoulder, calf and sides. He then kicked Shigaraki, who tried to grab his ankle, knocking him half unconscious as well, then proceeded to crush his thumb, preventing him from using his quirk. However, upon moving his leg, his pants dropped. "Haha, I pulled off your belt when you dodged my kick," Iida uttered, revealing the belt in his hand. Before Stain could reply, he felt a sharp pain in his ankle as Shigaraki pulled out the throwing knife that was hidden in Stain's dropped pant leg and stabbed him in the calf. The hero killer let out a roar as he limped away from Shigaraki, who threw the bloody knife as a last-ditch effort. Stain was able to dodge the knife, all the while holding up his pants, but just then, Iida came running in, tackling Stain as the knives lodged in his body fell out from the impact. That, however, was the last of Iida's strength as he then collapsed onto the ground, unable to even lift a finger. Stain then got back up, picking up the knife that Iida supposedly dropped. "You're one tenacious bastard, I'll give you that much," Stain commented, putting his belt back on, "so I'll just have to make sure you don't get up." But just as he was about to lick the knife he picked up, Iida grinned as he uttered, "Checkmate." Suddenly, Stain himself collapsed to the ground, unable to lift a finger. "What the?" Stain yelled out in confusion. Yeah, I swapped out the knife that fell out of my body with the one Shigaraki stabbed you with when I tackled you. Iida explained, while lying there trying to regain his strength. Your quirk may be strong, but it has a major flaw. It can affect you too. Stain grunted. So this whole time, your plan was to somehow trick me into licking my own blood? He asked. Quite ingenious, isn't it? I learned it by watching Midoriya. Iida commented. Stain seemed to twitch angrily at that name, as if it was reminding him of something from the past. Eventually, Iida was able to regain his strength and limp weakly to pick up Stain's paralyzed body along with Shigaraki. Where are you taking me? Shigaraki asked, too weak to move. We may have fought together, but in the end, you still need to be detained. I'm taking you to the authorities so that they can sort it out. Iida answered, I should also apologize to my superior. Just then, as he was about to reach the exit of the alleyway, a familiar figure jumped down. And that's where I need to stop you, said the figure. Lightless Iida grunted angrily, but found it hard to even stand from all of the blood loss. Ah. Mightless. Thank God. Hey, a little help here? Asked Stain, but to no response. Instead, Mightless was about to knock out Iida when suddenly, one of the nomas that he set up to attract the heroes' attention away from them was sent flying towards them. The heroes arrived shortly after. Seeing this, Stain called back. Hey. Help me. Stop ignoring me. He yelled out. Instead of listening, however, he turned to Stain and whispered. This is where we part ways, hero killer. He whispered as he knocked out Iida, placed him on the sidewalk and was about to take off with Shigaraki. Stain, on the other hand, gave out a stare of disbelief. Look. There's that villain, Mightless, and he seems to have a hostage. Called out one of the heroes. Mightless, on the other hand, pointed into the alleyway as a small cyclone carried the paralyzed hero killer towards them. Look, the hero killer. And he's unable to fight back. Restrain him. The heroes called out. Damn you. Stain yelled back at him as he was taking off with Shigaraki. However, heroes were flooding in from all sides, cutting off Mightless's escape routes. Not wanting to reveal too much of his quirk in fear he might get found out, he whistled as a flying Nomu came in a blazing speeds and picked him up. He's getting away, said one of the heroes. Suddenly, Stain sprung back to life as he jumped onto the Nomu and stabbed it to death, causing Izuku to drop Shigaraki and fall back down. You bastard. Did you really think you can just betray me and live? Asked Stain, angry beyond belief. Stain, what are you doing? Izuku yelled back. Getting payback. You betray me, I betray you. Now Shigaraki can escape once more. He yelled out as Izuku saw the man, slowly limping away, blending into the crowd. He's getting away. Izuku yelled at him in rage, but was pushed back with even more anger coming from Stain. Did you really think I was gonna just play along with your game forever, you brat? If I had known you would just run on me, you would be long dead. Be happy I gave you a chance. Stain yelled back as the heroes were closing in. Suddenly, seeing the heroes closing in, Stain stabbed into the ground, bursting a pipe below and letting out a huge blast, stunning the heroes as he took that opportunity to escape. Izuku, on the other hand, seeing that Shigaraki was long gone and the amount of heroes surrounding the area, called out for Kurogiri, who warped him away just as the smoke cleared. At the roof, Izuku jumped back out of the portal, looking pissed off as hell. I could have had him. I could have had him. Damn that bastard Stain. I never thought that bastard would turn on us like that, yelled a very pissed off Izuku. Kurogiri simply stared as Izuku let out his rage by tearing the roof apart with his quirk. As he finally calmed down, the man spoke up. I have sent back all the field agents. All that's left are the nomas, what should we do? Asked the bartender. Leave them, we still have plenty. They already took out and captured half of them thanks to Endeavor anyways, so it's not like retrieving the other will do us any good. Izuku said while walking into the portal, I'm off to the bar, I need a drink. Todoroki slowly focused his energy into one point, carefully focusing so that he doesn't break his arm. It's been a few days since a Todoroki had agreed to inherit One for All, and thanks to his already well-built body and his understanding of quirk functionality, he had already managed to use up to 10% without breaking his arm. All Might, looking at him, smiled with pride. During the entirety of the internship, Todoroki had done nothing but train to master his new quirk. Of course, he had to make a few promises to All Might. For one, he couldn't use his new quirk in class, so that he doesn't arouse suspicion, and secondly, All Might's true body stays a secret. The man had faith in the child, he knew that he could be a great hero one day, that he truly will surpass him, like his father wanted him to. Bringing up Endeavor suddenly made him think about the hero. Apparently the man's changed quite a bit. He seemed less cold and more open to others, but only a bit though. But the biggest change he observed was the fact that Endeavor's competitive spirit had suddenly returned. It felt like they were back to their high school years. When asking why the sudden change, the man explained that a certain someone from Yuuei had helped him open his eyes. That reveal surprised him, and now, he secretly hoped he could one day meet the kid too, to see what he is like. His thoughts were cut short though, as he heard Todoroki call him. His voice seemed to come from an elevated area. "Hey. All Might. Up here. I was able to make this jump all by myself. Cool huh?" Todoroki asked, standing on a balcony on the 5th story of what seemed to be a 20-story building. All Might smiled, turning to his muscle form. "Not bad, young Todoroki, but..." Suddenly, with a huge burst of power, All Might jumped past Todoroki, landing on the roof of the building. "You still have a long way to go," he called from above. Seeing this, Todoroki smiled, knowing that one day, that will be him up there. He used his ice quirk to expand the balcony's surface and used that temporary platform to jump again, trying to reach All Might. While waiting for his student though, All Might noticed something familiar about the building. He didn't know why, but a feeling of regret washed over him as he looked at the tile patterns and the fences and the light yellow color of the building. Can a quirkless kid be a hero? A sudden flashback came to him. It was as if he had been here before, talking to someone, some kid. Who? He can't remember. His memory was too full of work, catchphrases, excuses to leave conventions and interviews when his time is up in the middle of interviews, and of people he noted could be good successors for him to remember what specifically happened. Suddenly, Todoroki managed to make it onto the roof as well. "I made it," Todoroki said with a smile of accomplishment. That smile, however, made him feel even more guilty, for reasons beyond him. "What is this?" thought All Might. Todoroki looked at All Might, confused. "Is everything alright?" asked the student. "Why yeah, I just spaced out for a second." All Might responded, "We should get going." As the two left, however, thoughts kept swirling in the back of All Might's head. Why do I feel like Todoroki isn't the only one I had failed to help? Chapter 31. The car pulled over at the very same, broken down warehouse it has been to so many times. The young leader got off the vehicle, stepping into the building with a nervous look on his face. Inside the haunting structure, the flickering lights were like pairs of judgmental eyes, staring in disappointment at him. Finally reaching his destination, Izuku sat down on the chair facing his sensei. Despite not having much of a face, Izuku could sense the anger coming from his teacher. Not an extreme amount of anger, but more like the amount you'd receive from a disappointed father. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why, either. Izuku had not only failed to capture Shigaraki, but had also acted selfishly, and in doing so, let the man escape, caused one of their strongest and newest members to turn on them, and cost them 3 of their nomas. Once Izuku was done drinking away all of his problems, he was immediately called by Kurogiri, who claimed his sensei wanted to see him, which brings us to the two's current situation. "I'm not going to explain to you what you did wrong, as I know you should be smart enough to figure that out yourself, but I am still disappointed you did it." All for one started to scold. Izuku, hearing this, lowered his head in shame. "I had lots of hope in you, poured as much of my heart into you as I did with my previous student, hoping you two wouldn't turn out the same way. This was the last thing I was expecting from someone like you, Izuku," he continued. Hearing this, Izuku wanted to lash out deep down. Comparing him to Shigaraki struck a pretty sensitive spot in his heart. But he knew he couldn't do that because he trusted his sensei. He knew that what his sensei was speaking was true. He just had a hard time accepting it. "I'm sorry, sensei," Izuku replied. "I overheard that All Might was giving Todoroki his quirk and that he was sorry for not helping someone who needed help. That revelation put me on edge. I had it on the back of my head, constantly fueling my rage. I didn't think straight. I made so many dumb decisions. It's alright, my child." All for one responded as Izuku stopped talking to listen. "You may have acted foolishly, like Shigaraki does, but unlike him, you're still young, you are still green, unsure about your own emotions, and in times, you'll have stuff from the past coming back to haunt you, but have no real way of controlling yourself. All of this, the things you went through, it's all part of you slowly growing up. But if you can confront your past trauma, the same trauma who has been throwing you off for all this time, then I guarantee, you will become a perfect successor for my quirk." Izuku smiled at his sensei's comforting words. "Really? You really think that?" asked the young student. "Of course I do, but beware, it isn't easy overcoming such a hurdle. In fact, Shigaraki was once in this very same situation," explained the villain. "He was?" "Oh yes. You see, Shigaraki wasn't always the man-child you know him as. Back when he was your age, he was just as determined and smart as you. He had amazing potential and was willing to do anything to get what he wanted. Sadly, he failed to overcome his hatred of All Might and in doing so, slowly became impatient that his plans and tactics weren't enough to kill him. In the end, he ditched all of the brilliance he had because his hate for All Might and the pro-heroes blinded him." All for one explained. Izuku thought for a moment. So this whole time, Shigaraki was a fallen leader, stuck in the past due to his grudges and unable to move on until he was done fighting the past. He speculated. And now, you are going down the same path. Will you be able to vanquish your inner demons though? Or will you end up the same foolish puppet, completely dependent on the League to pull his weight? All for One asked. Suddenly, the lost fire of determination reignited as Izuku stood up valiantly. I'm going to overcome my past. My League needs to have a good leader to rely on, so I can't let them down. Izuku exclaimed. Seeing this, All for One smiled. One more thing, Izuku. He said, extending his hand, your practical exams are coming up and from the school files you leaked, you'll have to fight against the teachers. Hearing this, Izuku froze, knowing that he will have to face off against All Might. And such, as well as being punishment for your failure, I will be taking away your quirk. For this occasion. Explained the sensei. Upon hearing this, Izuku immediately started to protest. But sensei. You can't do this to me. I can't do anything without my quirk. I can't go back to being weak. I can't. Calm yourself, my child. All for One cut off, you are so much stronger than you think. Back then, when I gave you your quirk, it was never to give you a fighting chance to enter Yuuei. Rather, I needed to give you something that can boost your confidence. My confidence? Izuku asked. You keep on victimizing yourself for not having a quirk, which I can understand. But I couldn't let your lack of self-belief hold you back. Sometimes, even the best geniuses will think themselves as idiots for not being good at the things they're not at. So to make sure you can use your brain to the fullest without your thoughts of being quirkless get in your way, I gave you a quirk to compensate for it. Though now, I feel like I may have spoiled you a bit, a contributing factor to your outburst. Explained All for One. But, what about the sports festival? Or my fight with Kaken? Or me getting into Yuuei? My quirk played a huge role in those parts. Pleaded the young boy. And what about your villain career's beginning, where you earned enough reputation to get noticed by the League? What about your first mission, where you managed to retrieve a quirk enhancer drug that's been playing a huge role in our League ever since? What about the USJ incident, where you struck a huge blow to the reputations of heroes and only failed due to a betrayal not even I could predict? What about the HQ raid you masterminded or Endeavor, whose pride you've broken? Your biggest accomplishments were all thanks to your brilliant mind. Your quirk played no part in any of those except for one thing, to make sure you don't think about your weakness. He replied. That revelation left Izuku bewildered. He never thought of it before, but his quirks never really did too much for him. He now knew that this whole time, he was blinded by his past self, constantly yelling at himself that he was nothing without quirks, that he never realized how powerful he really was, even without quirks. It was all clear to him, he needed to break the chains of the past holding him back. That was his next big step. No longer scared, he walked up to his sensei, and with a rough calloused palm place on his head, he felt his quirk leave his body, reverting him back to his old self. But he no longer felt helpless, instead, he felt like he had returned to his true self. There was no more weak quirkless little Deku, no more wimpy, stuttering Izuku, there was only mightless. Days went by after the break, and Class A was finally back in action. Their first after-break course. Rescue training. To summarize, teams of 5 must reach the center of Testing Field Gamma, another multi-million-dollar test ground that made Izuku question Japan's economic choices, to reach a distress signal that All Might sent off to quote-unquote save him. Izuku was paired with Iida, Shiro, Mina and Ajiro, all very mobility-focused students, especially the first two. Having lost the ability to manipulate his breath was a major step back for the kid, and he was shaking in fear under his uniform, much like he used too long ago. Even Katsuki took notice, as he started to laugh at him. Focus, Izuku, focus. Remember what sensei said. My true talent is not my quirk. It's not the quirk. Thought Izuku as he made his way to the starting line. Oh, who am I kidding, how the hell am I gonna make it in such a short amount of time? As the starting gun was fired, the students rocketed off, leaving Izuku behind. As the young teen struggled to keep up, thoughts keep rushing back to his head. I knew it. I'm nothing without my quirk. I can't do this. I can't. Suddenly, his foot slipped as he plummeted down the building he was on. Upon falling down, all he could feel are regrets. This was all my fault, if only I hadn't betrayed Stain I would, he thought before a memory suddenly hit him. Wait a minute, Stain jumps off buildings all the time and lands safely, but his quirk isn't what allows him to do so he must have used technique. Slowly trying to piece together how Stain did it, he remembered seeing him in action time and time again. Latch on the one wall, leap to the next, bend the knees, square the shoulders, don't look down. Slowly, his heart pumped with excitement, he was moving forward, galloping, leaping, not with quirks, but with what he was best at. Analyzing. That was his talent all along, one that he had ditched after obtaining a quirk. Picking up where he left off, he dug into the vaults of his memory to remember every move he had analyzed, trained in the past, observed. His body was in full autopilot while he reached deep into his mind to find the next move. Iida, who was halfway there, suddenly saw a figure run by him, whose movements made him shudder in fear for a brief moment. Stain? He said to himself, no, it's Midoriya. But why do his movements seem so similar? Eventually, the course ended, with Izuku coming in third, but he didn't care, he knew that now, he no longer needed his quirk to exact his revenge. Towards the end of the day however, Aizawa made an announcement. With summer coming up, it would be quite irrational to give you all a month off, hence, you'll all be taking a summer training camp in the woods. Explained the teacher. This was always the best part of the day to the kid, seeing what special event was coming up to find a way to ruin them. And now, with the entire class isolated in the woods, he can just imagine the headlines prior to the camp. Massacre at Yuuei training camp, heroes fails to protect students. He couldn't wait for another big heist, it had been quite a while since he could have fun messing with heroes, and he knew the league was thinking the same thing, but first, he needed to overcome one last hurdle. His blinding hatred for All Might. Flash forward to June. Crap. I totally got wrapped up by the internship and sports festival that I forgot to study. Yelled a frustrated Kaminari. It was a week before the finals, both written and practical, of course, the written phase didn't faze Izuku one bit. After realizing his true talents, his class ranking skyrocketed past that of Katsuki and Iida's, nearly even catching up to Momo's. Sadly, 2 100s could only pull Izuku's notes up so much as his average couldn't possibly compare to Momo's perfect 100 record. Although, in terms of practical, she seemed quite stressed out. He heard that apparently, Momo had lost all confidence ever since her loss to Tokoyami during the sports festival. Of course, the boy couldn't care less, he doesn't really mind any of his classmates, in fact, they are all but pawns to him. Though he can name out a few exceptions, notably Ichako, Iida, Todoroki and, to his surprise, Katsuki. As time went on, he's really starting to understand less and less about his former bully. The once loud-mouthed, nitroglycerin-filled balloon seemed a lot more tame, a lot less triggered, and, to some extent, even more mellow, but only towards other students, he's still a full-time asshole to him. He's often seen chatting with Kirishima, who seemed to be the only student in the whole school to intentionally approach him without being told to do so as a 1,000 yen dare. Yo. Deku. Speak of the devil. Hey. Are you deaf or something? I've been calling you for 5 minutes. Yelled the spike-haired teen to his green-haired punching bag. Letting out an annoyed groan, Izuku turned to him. Yeah? What is it, Kakin? Asked Izuku, expecting another 10 minutes of death threats. You've been quite dodgy recently. Trying to avoid me or something. Maybe I'm scaring you too much, you pussy. The bag of explosives started. Just because I'm not in your line of sight 24/7 doesn't mean I don't exist, Kakin. Do you really think I only exist to be your stepping stone? Izuku asked back in a sort of pissed-off passive-aggressive tone he's been using to talk to the guy. Yeah? Like I only need one stepping stone. You are all just turtles, you hear me? And I don't appreciate the fact that you're all just gonna overlook me. It's been so damn annoying to have everyone just overlook the top dog of this class. Well, I hope you all prepare, because I'm gonna blow up this fucking practical exam with an explosion so big, you will all be worshipping me by the end of this. He yelled, even you, Todoroki. Slamming the door behind him, he stomped down the hall. The rest of the class was silenced by the outburst. I haven't seen Bakugo so serious in a while. Commented Kirishima. Uneasiness? Or perhaps sheer hatred? Wondered Tokoyami. The week flew by, and before anyone knew it, it was the day of the practical exam. Izuku had learned about the revision, making the students fight the teachers, wondering whether his ideas influenced this change or not. What he wasn't expecting was who he was paired up against. Katsuki Bakugo. And their opponent. Or course All Might, cause why not? While driving the duo to the testing grounds, Izuku stared at the hero from head to toe, trying to hold back the urge to just pull out a knife and stab him in the lungs. Looking at how confident he was, ignorant of what he had created made him so sick, he had to excuse himself to go vomit prior to embarking onto the bus. Itsuki, on the other hand, sensed that his childhood friend was beaming with so much anger, it was like looking at himself in the mirror. Deku, what's going on with you? Katsuki asked himself. As the two got off, All Might explained the rules to the two. They had to either escape the compound or handcuff the villain. Izuku, during this explanation, was biting his tongue on the inside, preventing him from lashing out like how he did with Katsuki during their combat training way back when. As the test started, Izuku rushed into the compound, with Katsuki quickly following. Hey. Slow the fuck down, you shitty nerd. Yelled Katsuki, a phrase he never thought he would say. He was just as determined at beating All Might, but seeing someone so wimpy and weak that would usually freak out at the mere sight of the hero emit such an aura of hatred towards his idol, he began wondering what happened to Izuku during all this time. Izuku didn't answer, he was afraid that merely opening his mouth would have his anger pour out. Instead, he just kept on running. Deku? For fuck's sake. Can you at least tell me what the fuck your plan here is? Asked Kitsuki. No answer. Dek. Shut the fuck up for fuck's sake and let me massacre this son of a bitch in peace, would you? Izuku snapped to Kitsuki. The sudden yelling made his stop in his tracks. He never heard him talk in such a tone, the fact that he would even refer to All Might as a son of a bitch was unfathomable. Suddenly, a strong shockwave was felt as the buildings nearby were blown away. All Might, despite handicapped, was still packing quite a punch as he emerged from the rising dust. Massacre me? Asked All Might with a naive tone, good luck with that. Upon seeing this, Kitsuki entered a fighting stance while Izuku looked into his eyes. Those same, naive pair of eyes that looked down upon him when he crushed his dreams that fateful day. The same pair of eyes that looked down on him, hypocritically since he was Quirkless too. Think of this as test. All Might explained, I'm the villain, heroes, so give me your best shot. The villain then came charging at the two like a mad bull. Upon seeing this, Kitsuki turned to his partner. Listen, I got this covered, so don't get in my way. Kitsuki told his partner. Shut the fuck up, Kitsuki. He's mine. Izuku yelled out, losing both his cool and his habit of calling Kitsuki by his given nickname. Seeing the student charging at him, All Might sent another punch at him, but as the smoke cleared once more, he was met in the face with a stop sign. Don't think I was just sitting around studying All Might. Izuku yelled, continually striking his weak point, I've been training day and night for one goal, to beat you. This kid, he keeps going for my battle wound, does he know about it or is this just a coincidence? Thought All Might, either way, it won't be enough. He grabbed Izuku by the leg, slamming him into the ground. A little weak barrage like that hurts, but only a little. All Might commented, before getting hit by an explosion from behind. Don't turn your back on me. Kitsuki yelled at him. As he launched another explosion, All Might punched right through it, sending a fist flying at Kitsuki, but the latter rocketed himself into the air, flipping behind him, trying to land a hit, but crashed into a charging Izuku. As the duo fought, the number one pro hero, Recovery Girl, watched from her tent. Both have different reasons for wanting to beat All Might. One seems to be a very gifted student that had made it clear that he just wants to have everyone acknowledge his superiority, so his desire to beat All Might is justified. Thought the old lady, although, what reason would Izuku have for wanting to beat the hero? It almost seems as though his anger is grudge-driven. Once again, Izuku got up from getting knocked over, pushing Kitsuki out of the way. For the last time, stop charging recklessly into the freight, you're getting in my way. Yelled Kitsuki. Shut it, Kakin, I'll win. I will beat this hypocritical bastard I can't stand. Izuku responded angrily. Suddenly, memories of Izuku watching All Might on TV while holding his action figure came to his mind. The amount of joy drawn on Izuku's young face at the sight of the hero completely contrasts the Izuku he was facing currently. Suddenly, All Might came down with a guardrail, pinning down Kitsuki, before turning around and punching Izuku in the stomach, sending him flying away several feet. You stay put, young Bakugo, I'll take care of your partner first. He said before turning towards Izuku, who was struggling to get up. As the hero made his way to the downed student, Kitsuki tried to pull himself out of the guardrail, as more and more flashbacks came of him, cheering for All Might to win. All Might is just the coolest. A young Izuku said, looking at the supermarket TV broadcast, I want to be a hero like him when I grow up. Back in the present, All Might squatted down to Izuku, who was still gasping for air. I apologize if this ruins your view of me, young Midoriya. But for the sake of you being a better hero, this is necessary. I hope you understand me. All Might apologized. It's true, he does, no matter what happens, Deku would never lose faith in All Might. Thought Kitsuki, almost free from his rail prison. And it, All Might, the way I view you hasn't changed a bit. Izuku grunted, you were always a hypocritical piece of shit to me. Upon hearing this, Kitsuki broke out of the guardrails, running to the two as All Might as about to finish him off. Shigaraki cried out, nailed Izuku across the face, exploding All Might in the face in the process, a hypocritical piece of shit. The Deku I knew would never have called All Might such a thing. As All Might was dazed by Kitsuki, the two fled into an alleyway. Let go of me, yelled Izuku. Shut up. Suddenly, Kitsuki's tone changed to a much more commanding, level-headed one, like he really was talking to someone who was his equal, a rarity for Kitsuki. I don't have any tactics for beating All Might, I never did. Kitsuki explained. What? I don't have any because that's your job. You always relied on your brain over brawn because you knew you couldn't do anything without a quirk. Your mind, as much as I hate to admit it, is your greatest weapon, even better than mine, so how about you use it like you used to? Asked Katsuki. After all, someone who just charges head first into whatever problem until it works, it isn't you, is it? Another flashback fades in. Damn. They took apart the bridge. Cried one of Katsuki's friends. The gap isn't too big, I say we jump it. Katsuki cheered as he readied his jump. Sadly, his jump failed and he splashed into the water. Wiping off the mud, he heard laughter coming from the other side. Oh my god Katsuki, look at you. His friends, who were now on the other side, laughed. What the how did you? Your friend Izuku here gave us the idea of using my leaf manipulation quirk as wings to glide us across. Explained the skinnier one. What the how did he? Simple. You just got to think outside the box. Answered a young Izuku. The memories faded as tears leaked out of Izuku's eyes, his senses returning to him. I'm such a fool. Meanwhile, All Might dashed across the wrecked city, trying to find the two, heading closer to the exit as he predicted they would be fleeing. Suddenly, Katsuki came barreling out of one of the corners of one of the heavy damaged buildings that All Might punched. As he was about to counter him, he realized both of Katsuki's gauntlets were missing. Deku, now. Suddenly, after Katsuki blinded All Might with an explosion, Izuku jumped out of cover, emptying the sweat reserve of one of Katsuki's gauntlets onto All Might, as well as propelling him closer to the exit. Katsuki, however, was caught in the explosion and knocked out. Seeing this, Izuku dropped one of his gauntlets, making a mad dash for the exit. However, just as he was about to make it, All Might appeared once again. It's gonna take more than that to keep me down. Said All Might. Izuku tried using his other gauntlet, but All Might smashed it. You're gonna regret doing that to me. Izuku tried fighting back, but it was no use, and soon enough, the fight was no more than a one-sided beatdown. Eventually, after seeing the state he was in, All Might stopped. You should have thought ahead before leaving your friend behind, he could be helping you by then. All Might lectured. Izuku, however, smiled back. But I didn't leave him behind. Suddenly, All Might's eyes widened as he took a look at the nearby roads and, only 10 to 20 meters away from the exit was Katsuki. So he was pretending to be knocked out, huh? All Might said as he ran to Katsuki at top speed. Well played, but not good enough. Suddenly, Katsuki turned to All Might, pointing at him one of the gauntlets that Izuku dropped. Seeing this, All Might realized what that meant. So young Midoriya dropped the unused one for young Bakugo. Well played. Another giant explosion was heard as All Might was once again sent back several meters as Katsuki then charged through the exit seconds after Todoroki and Momo's victory had been announced. It wasn't a complete victory, but he will take it. Izuku, on the other hand, smiled in satisfaction. He looked at All Might but felt no more rage. He had done it, he had overcome his weakness. I did it, sensei, Izuku uttered to himself. I'm no longer like Shigaraki. Now that will be unfortunately all for today's video, but do not worry, more will be coming soon for you to enjoy. Golden Fanfics out.